Well, hey there. Merry Christmas. An early Merry Christmas to you. It's Friday. I thought I'd dress up real nice.
Wow.
I'm Jon Root. Alex Clark, how you doing?
Look at this. You look like a real wrapped gift.
Hey, well, thank you. Don't open till Christmas. Coming up next, we got Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec. He's been the guy to go to for everything Ghislaine Maxwell, or as you would say.
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine Maxwell. But today, he's talking a little Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty juicy because there's a lot of celebrities that kind of had, proclaimed his innocence and talked about how the former Trump administration was all to blame, but I haven't seen any apologies.
I haven't seen any. We're going to break that down when we stay on the couch, too, but a little bit more from Human Events Daily. You got President Biden pressuring Ukraine to cede to the separatists. And also, you got Congresswoman Gabbard says mainstream media will lead us into World War III.
I believe that. You know what? You know what I want for Christmas? I want Congresswoman Gabbard to come out as conservative. That is literally all I want. I don't understand what the holdup is. If we can get a committee together, I would like to do that.
Yeah, let's set that up.
Yeah.
Let's get the committee together. I think it would be great because I think it's about time. All right, after that, we are sitting on the couch. We got a great lineup of guests. We got Ellie Byrd, she's back, TPUSA ambassador. And you got Alex Clark, host of The Spillover. We're going to tell you all about that in a little bit. Also host of Politics, and we're going to talk about tweets of the week. We have some great tweets this week that are all about Jussie Smollett.
Good. I'm excited about that.
Oh, it's so good. We have a lot of receipts. Don't forget that. We know you tweeted it, and there's a lot of people. I'm really surprised they didn't delete the tweets or put some sort of disclaimer that says, sorry.
Is it true that we're also doing a dating poll?
Yeah, we're talking about this poll that came out and said, well, how would libs and conservatives, would they date each other, flip-flop?
Oh, I saw this, yes.
It's going to get spicy.
I
as we
love
would say.
when that happens.
Oh, it's going to be so good. And we're going to talk about the true meaning of Christmas. Oh, it's going to be sweet.
For me.
Come on. All right. Well, I'm going to have to school Alex on that when we sit on the couch. That and so much more. And then we got a brand new episode of The Spillover. What do we got?
We have a hostage negotiator. Her
Ooh.
name is Ericka Stropka. She's from the Tucson, Arizona Police Department. And so she's going to talk about what it's like to be on the phone with someone outside of their house and walk them off the edge when they're either about to hurt themselves or someone else or holding someone hostage. And that involves so much patience and just a crazy skill set that it's so interesting. I never hear people talking about that, but to understand how people's minds work and how to talk them out of those situations is fascinating. So that is on The Spillover that has dropped today. That's out.
Oh, man, I can't wait to watch that. That's coming up a little bit later. And then when I think of stories like this, I'm like, how do you stay so calm, cool, and collected? You almost have to really separate yourself from the emotion. I'm sure you go over that in the episode, too. I can't wait to hear about that. And then you get a lot of Alex Clark today. What more could you want on a Friday? You got a brand new episode of Politics.
This is a really juicy episode of Politics. I would argue.
Like a Jussie Smollett
Not
episode?
Jussie Smollett episode per se, but juicy as in 5 orange juicy, as I like to say. Just really good stories. So David Dobrik, the YouTuber, he talked about how he has literally seen celebrities sell their souls to the Illuminati in Hollywood. So that's interesting if you are like a conspiracy theory type. I mean, it's I told you it was juicy stuff. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about today, you're going to get my take on the Hillary Clinton, what my victory speech would have been if I would have won president. And also how Bill Gates thinks he's CEO of coronavirus. So he's the freak of the week this week. We'll talk about that.
Oh, it's going to be so good. And then before we let you go, it's Christmas. We are, 15 days away now?
Yeah.
And I keep on thinking, to slow the spread. You always heard that. And then now it's just like, we're not going to slow the spread of Christmas. Not this Christmas cheer, but I think the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud to all to hear. That's what I heard. What's your favorite Christmas song?
My favorite Christmas song is Welcome Christmas by the cartoon version, like the 60s version of The Grinch, the whatever. And so it's like, wahoo, wahoo, da-hoo-da, welcome Christmas, Christmas Day.
I like the overhead shot, too, and they're all just leaning back and forth around the Christmas.
And I've loved that since I was little. And so now, even as an adult, it's my tradition for myself that every Christmas Eve I watch the cartoon Grinch in my pajamas.
Oh, my goodness. I love that. Well,
What's your favorite Christmas song?
I have a lot, but anytime I hear the most wonderful time of the year, that kicks off.
Oh,
It
that's a
makes me
good
think of a few different Christmas movies, and I'm just like, I'm ready to go.
Yes.
It's the best. And I hope you're ready to go. We got a great live stream for you today. Human Events Daily with Jack Posobiec coming up next. We'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's stories. Number one, got to talk about it. Jussie Smollett found guilty of a hate crime hoax by a Chicago jury. Next, Biden to press Ukraine on ceding territory to Eastern separatists. Third, the NIH has stated no documents are available on the removal of gain-of-function definition from their website. And finally, Tulsi Gabbard is out saying the mainstream media will lead us to World War III. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily. The entire corporate press, the entire regime media told you for weeks and weeks that Jussie Smollett had been attacked by two white men in red hats in the dead of night in Chicago outside of a subway, screaming, "This is MAGA country," pouring bleach over him and assaulting him. The entire story was a fabrication. It was a fraud, a fake, a hoax, a phony. And if you couldn't get that within the first 60 seconds of hearing this story, then either one of two things is going on. Number one, you are completely brainwashed, or number two, you have no critical thinking ability whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a conservative to believe or disbelieve that story, but you need to approach everything with critical thinking now. Ellen Page, at the time, went on David Letterman and was screaming about this thing. Tens of millions of views she got on that interview. So many people all over the place. Jussie Smollett, Good Morning America, holding concerts. You had presidents and candidates and all sorts of people coming out in support of this guy. Listen to Jussie at a concert he held right afterwards talking about, I kid you not, he said he fought them off. Listen to this.
I was bruised, but my ribs were not cracked. They were not broken. I went to the doctor immediately. Frank Gatson drove me. I was not hospitalized. Both my doctors in LA and Chicago cleared me to perform, but said to take care, obviously. And above all, I fought back. I'm the gay Tupac. So now we can do our encore.
Famously, Kamala Harris, senator at the time, wrote, Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. He was found with a rope around his neck that he had placed there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representative, wrote, "There is no such thing as racially charged. The attack was not possibly homophobic. It was a racist and homophobic attack. If you don't like what's happening to our country, then work to change it. It is no one's job to water down or sugarcoat the rise of hate crimes." Joy Ann Reid, "Nooses never really disappeared as messages of a specific kind of terror. But every time they're used, my God, it's chilling. Praying for Jussie's full recovery and for us all." You know, I checked, by the way, Joy Reid has never actually followed up on any aspect of the Jussie Smollett trial after this. But you know who did follow up was Kim Foxx. Kim Foxx, the state attorney, who was funded by everyone's favorite Hungarian billionaire, sitting there, originally dropped charges on Jussie Smollett, was going to give him community service. The mayor, the police of Chicago said, He put us through that much. He made us send 26 officers to investigate this thing. $100,000 investigation, no way. And then what did Jussie do? He went up and perjured himself for hours. And this is something, and you're not going to hear this anywhere else. So Jussie probably wasn't looking at jail time, right, prior to this. He probably, by the way, he would have done better if he had just pled guilty. Right, just plead guilty to the 6 counts. These are class 4 felonies, the lowest possible felony. You'll get probation, you'll get community service. They'll probably have you doing vaccine PSAs or something. But when he got up there in that courtroom and perjured himself for 2 days straight in front of the judge and in front of the jury, now you've got a problem on your hands. Jussie, they are going to make an example of you. Now, sentencing is yet to happen, but Jussie, I'm telling you, man, you should have just taken the rap. You should have just taken the heat. Own up for what you did. That's one thing they used to teach us in the Navy. When you're wrong, admit what you did. When you're wrong, stay wrong, admit it, correct it. Don't lie. The lie, the cover up is always what makes it worse, is what makes it bigger. So Jussie, you might actually be going behind bars because you are pathologically incapable, just like Alec Baldwin, of telling the truth. There's a lot of that going around, and it's in Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, stop listening to celebrities. Folks, continue to support us, support the show. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code POSO, use it for your Christmas shopping and also for your Christmas giving. One thing that Tanya and I are doing is we went to mypillow.com and we said, you know what? We're going to order some extra stuff, some extra packages, towels, pillows, different things that we can get, and we're going to be donating those to our local church this Christmas. They're distributing them to families that are needy, families that need it more than we do. So it's a way for us to give back to our community. It's a way to help through the church, and really just something that's great to do. I think it's really part of the actual Christmas season, the celebration, of course, of Jesus' coming, of his birth, but also the idea of the way that we should spread goodwill towards others. That is the real purpose of Christmas. That was the purpose of Jesus' coming. And so that's why for us, we are going to go and use those donations that we did get them from mypillow.com, and we're going to be going and distributing those at our local church. So going into the next story, geopolitics. And this came out of the AP of all places, right? I didn't expect this to come out of the AP. But Biden, the Biden administration, we've seen everything that's going on between Ukraine and Russia right now. So Russia is amassing troops on Ukraine's border. Ukraine is responding, they're amassing troops on their border as well. Why does this matter? Well, Ukraine has been talking about joining the EU and joining NATO, joining a military alliance with the rest of the North Atlantic. This obviously by Russia is seen as an aggressive act because Ukraine traditionally had been seen as kind of a borderland. That's actually what the word Ukraine means. Granica means border in Slavic. And so this was traditionally seen as a buffer between Russia, the East, and then the West being the rest of Western Europe. But Biden, and this is crazy. So there are separatist groups in Eastern Ukraine that are supportive of a Russian advance. They want to break away. It's similar to South Ossetia, if you saw any of that in terms of Georgia and everything that went on in 2008. But these separatists want to break away from Ukraine and want to join, or what they would say, rejoin Russia, because they were part of Russia during the USSR days. And at different points in Eastern European history, Russian history, they were part of the Russian Empire. But here's what's kind of insane. From the AP, Biden is saying that they are potentially considering going to Ukraine and pressuring them to allow this region, the separatist region, to have a degree of autonomy away from Kiev. And then, of course, I think everybody knows what would happen. They essentially would make ties with Russia. They would first start with economic ties. They would then start with cultural ties. They would essentially be on the slow path towards reassimilation with Russia. Why would this be in the purview or the remit of the United States? I don't think Joe Biden, President Biden, understands foreign policy at all. Remember, this guy was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We were told up and down that he's a foreign policy expert. He knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing. He doesn't understand any of the history of the region. Everything that I just said about the buffer zone and the history of Eastern Europe, no, he has no clue about any of those things. Why would you even ever be discussing something like this? You fool. You absolute moron. So of course they go and ask Jen Psaki about it. Let's play the clip.
But I will highlight for you that the president's intention going into this call was to provide an update for President Zelensky on his call with President Putin and underscore our support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, as Secretary Blinken did when he spoke with President Zelensky earlier this week. So this is a follow-on to that call. President Biden is also intending to discuss his deep concerns with Russia's buildup on Ukraine's borders and his commitment to respond with strong measures in the event of a Russian military escalation. We've engaged closely with the Ukrainians throughout this process at a range of levels and have been in daily contact with senior officials in the Ukrainian government. So clearly that is a component of it. I'd also note, I think as many of you saw, that President also provided an update to the B9 Eastern flank countries with a personal readout of his call with President Putin to hear their perspectives on the current security situation and underscore our commitment to transatlantic security and to our NATO allies that are
So obviously, right? Obviously, the best policy for the United States is the status quo, right? You want the status quo. You don't want to be, number one, be messing around with the integrity of Ukraine. The same way that with the U.S. supporting Maidan led to the annexation of Crimea. Understand this. When they overthrew the duly elected leader, the democratically elected leader of Ukraine, whether you like him or not, he was elected, but he was overthrown. And then Russia saw that as an act of aggression. So what did Russia do? They annexed Crimea. And of course they were going to do that because that's where the Russian naval base of the Black Sea Fleet is headquartered, at Sevastopol. They were never going to give up. Look at Crimea. It is the most strategic land in the entire Black Sea, with the exception of Turkish-controlled Bosphorus Strait. Of course they're not going to give that up. Now they control the Kerch Strait. Now they control access to the entire eastern half of Ukraine. You think they're going to give that up? Why are you so stupid? Why do you people not understand how to look at a map and understand what is in your interest? And why do you care about the borders of Ukraine more than the borders of our own country, sir? The National Institute of Health. I think they're known for three things. Number one is the con artists of Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins. Number two, of course, is putting out guidance that is constantly changing. And number three, funding gain-of-function experiments in Wuhan. Well, the Epoch Times sent a message to the NIH recently asking them about their website. And they said, we noticed that you had, and I think we had reported this on as well at Human Events Daily, they said, we noticed that you had a definition on your website. And on the website, your definition was of gain of function. It was a 232-word definition of that type of research. But here's an interesting thing that happened, just a little thing, very interesting, very strange. Around the time that Human Events Daily and National Pulse and War Room and other places were reporting on the gain of function funding that went down in that Wuhan lab, Shizhong Li, the Batwoman, earlier this year, we broke the entire story down. Suddenly, magically, overnight, I guess by Fauci's elves, must have gone in over the night and hacked the NIH website and removed the definition of gain of function. It disappeared. Huh, that's strange. And then Epoch Times filed a request with the NIH. They said, what's going on with that? Can you guys send us, do you have any emails that suggest why you removed this? Are you revamping it? Are you redefining it? What's going on? What's the policy change here? Why are you doing this? Here was the response. No documents exist explaining why officials decided to remove the definition of gain of function research from the National Institutes of Health website, the agency told the Epoch Times. The alteration took place sometime between October 19th and October 21st, 2021. The request was closed this week. The NIH told Epoch Times that it does not have documentation on this. The Department of Health and Human Services in 2017 published a document explaining how to deal with proposed research involving, quote, enhanced potential pandemic pathogens, or gain of function research. The document narrowed the definition of pathogens to both highly transmissible and likely to cause significant sickness or death in humans. Huh, sound a little familiar? The page in question had described the general definition of gain of function research that fell outside the scope of HHS P3CO framework. Very, very, very interesting. And remember, of course, that who got into this on the stand in the Senate? Senator Rand Paul, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. Take a listen.
Do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain of function research in Wuhan?
This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans,
right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
We're saying they are gain of function viruses because they were animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And you
don't admit the truth.
And you are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individual. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
We never did it. We never did any of that. We never made those droplets. Those droplets could have come from anywhere. That wasn't us. Of course it wasn't us. Get your booster.
All right.
You don't know what you're talking about, Senator Paul.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna...
No, you can't. Posobiec, you're not boosted. Poso, boost yourself. You need the boost and vax. Have you had any shots?
I haven't had any shots.
What are you doing? You're a bioterrorist. I am science.
Do you understand what's going on here? This guy is squirming. He's squirming up there because Senator Paul's got him. He's got him locked in, and he knows exactly what Fauci did. He knows about the funding through DASHAC, through EcoHealth Alliance, through the Wuhan lab. He knows about the spike proteins. He knows about the ACE2 receptors. And we know everything. But Dr. Fauci won't come clean. Well, I'll tell you this. We've got this congressional committee out there on January 6th. Where's the congressional commission on an investigation of the funding of Wuhan and the origin of COVID-19? Folks, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's time to get on the lifeboats. The parallel economy and the parallel ecosystem has already been started. You see what's going on with Rumble. And now we see what's going on with Getter. Getter is the lifeboat. So we've got Human Events Daily. We're on the Rumble page. If you want to watch the show, if you're someone who's out there, you listen to Human Events Daily every day, you can now go to our Rumble page and watch it every single day. We've got a dedicated page for it. I think you're really going to like it there. Number two, you get on Getter because you got to get to the lifeboats now. We know the suspensions are coming. The ban hammer is cracking down. You saw all those Gen Z conservative accounts got wiped out overnight. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial tracker got wiped down. The Nancy Pelosi portfolio tracker got wiped down in the same day. I think it was actually the same guy who was running those. That all got taken out. You've got to go on Getter. Getter is the Twitter killer. Getter is the parallel ecosystem, the communications distribution arm that we will be able to keep and that we will be able to keep safe and that we can share information that is embarrassing to the regime. So go on Getter, Gettr, be there today. Next up, though, we're also talking about someone who's discussing the machinations, the agenda, and what's going on behind the scenes of the regime. It's Tulsi Gabbard, Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard, who's speaking out against what she views as the run-up to World War III, and who's pushing it. Take a listen.
I'm just wrapping up my reserve duty here at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and as you know, yesterday, December 7th, was the anniversary of Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. And so I've just been taking some time to reflect and to think about my brothers and sisters in arms who were killed on that day, and how that day of infamy catapulted our country into a world war that resulted in the deaths and suffering of millions of people. And I've been thinking about how infinitely greater the death and suffering will be if we allow the mainstream media, the military-industrial complex, self-serving politicians, if we allow them to lead us now into the apocalypse of World War III. So now is the time for anyone who cares for their loved ones, who cares for our fellow Americans, who cares for all human beings and wildlife. Now's the time to be reminded of the grim reality that we all face if we don't stop them.
I think what the Lieutenant Colonel said there is absolutely correct. I think that you do have people in this country, very powerful people, that are very upset that Biden pulled the plug on Afghanistan, that he snapped and said, get us all out. No, actually I had somebody tell me just last night from the intel community, someone that I used to work with in Navy intelligence, who came up to me at an event and said, look, Biden just snapped and said, I want out. I want everybody out. And he wouldn't take no for an answer. He wouldn't even listen to anyone else. You've got situations now, though, where people are looking at, okay, we're out of Afghanistan. Where do we go? Where do we go fight? The grift must continue. That's what's going on in Northern Virginia, the intel community, the national security state of this country. They want war, and they want war anywhere they can find it. Now, I've said this for years. If you want a strong country, you need to have two things: stable diplomatic relations and a strong military. It's as simple as that. This is the problem. This administration and these people, while pursuing this bloody path for endless war, have also created a situation in the geopolitical environment where they've weakened America and they've made the world more unstable. This is exactly what they want. Understand, they aren't creating the chaos accidentally. They want the chaos because they see the chaos and the destabilization as a path to power, both domestically and internationally. That is it for Human Events Daily. Kind of a special programming note for today. This will actually be the final episode of Human Events Daily for 2021 that we hold here in Washington, D.C. We are decamping for Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to be going out there. I'm flying this Sunday, and so from next Monday on out, I'm going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, doing the show from there from America Fest. Today, moment of history, 1898, the Treaty of Paris ended the Spanish-American War. With that, America defeating Spain put America on the map as a world power. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my permission to lay ashore.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Okay, that's it for us, Washington, D.C. As I said, this is our final episode here in Washington. Unless anything crazy happens, we won't be back here until 2022. So for myself, the rest of the team, Human Events Daily, we are saying goodbye to cold and dreary Washington, D.C., and we are heading for sunnier shores. I don't know if shores is the best way to describe Phoenix, Arizona, where we turn to now as Turning Point Live continues with The Couch. Take it away, John.
Well, thanks, Jack. Hey, everyone. Merry Christmas. I hope you like what's going on here. Welcome to TPUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. As always, I'm your host, Jon Root, and this is TPUSA Live. Here's the rundown for today's show. First, we got to cover Hillary Clinton's victory speech and more in the daily briefing. Next, details on how the left aims to steal Christmas. Then we got some great tweets of the week. And finally, an inflated Christmas, followed by our guest take on a new leftist and conservative dating poll, and one last thing. All right, buckle up. TPUSA Live from HQ starts now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got the ladies back.
Hi.
Again. We got Ellie Byrd, TPUSA ambassador. We also got Alex Clark, host of The Spillover, that you're going to get to tune into right after this hour-long discussion about the craziness that's going on in the world. We're covering a lot of Christmas stuff, and I hope you're down with that.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Yeah, he's definitely ready.
I can't wait to bust this thing out every single year. This is great. So are you guys fans of The Grinch?
Yes. Of course.
Because I know you kind of brought that up a little bit. You're like the Dahu Dory.
Yeah. I love the song Welcome Christmas from the Grinch cartoon, like in the 60s.
Oh, yes.
Well, did you know that you could rent out the Grinch's lair, his cave, actually?
Oh, I love this date night idea.
Yeah, you could do this. And actually, this is Dr. Seuss Enterprises. They're working with Vacasa. This is a real-life version of the Grinch cave. There it is right there. This vacation spot is located in Boulder, Utah. Not Boulder, Colorado. Boulder, Utah. It's available for bookings through their website. It's 5,700 square foot. It's got a kitchen, music room, 2 bedrooms, and everything you could ever imagine. And I hope they have a little doghouse for Max there too.
I know, that is so cute. That looks like a really cool place just to go. I mean, it doesn't even look Grinchy, like cheesy, you know? That's not what I was expecting.
No, they even had the piano, exactly how it is, like to a T, everything.
It's the Grinch but chic,
Yes.
which I'm very into that.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I feel like Jim Carrey should have won every award possible for that performance as the Grinch. I think that's one of my favorite performances of all time.
Everyone
He's
loves
hilarious.
him. It's too bad he turned into a leftist maniac who paints those psycho pictures of President Trump and stuff.
Oh, man. Well, other than that, it's good job on the Grinch, Mr. Jim Carrey. But a fun part about that is the Grinch leaves a note and says this: I myself, unlike any other Who, am getting out of town this year, far away from all the holiday hoopla with this fanatical, fantastical fa-la-la-la-la-la-la-ling. I am stealing Christmas again, maybe. Am I visiting my Florida beach home? Don't worry about it.
Probably is.
Even the Grinch loves Florida.
Yeah. Even the Grinch has tried to get out.
And also, too, you probably saw this circulating on social media. Hillary Clinton's back, and she wants to tell you what her victory speech would have been. Honestly, I think she needs to get over it. But they had her on the Today Show, and they had her show a little snippet of her class from Master Class. So the class is called The Power of Resilience, and this is how that went.
Didn't, as you know, write a concession speech, because even though we had a lot of bumps those last 10 days, I still thought, we could pull it out. So I worked on a speech that really was about my journey and had a real emphasis on my mother's life and journey as a way of, making it clear that, yes, I would be the first woman president, but I like everybody, stood on the shoulders and lived the lives and the experiences of those who came before us.
Okay. And then we didn't show you a little bit of that speech, but she did get emotional talking about her mom and was trying to get a little sentimental, but also too, like the fact that she's given another platform again, just like, oh, you could have been. It's like, what other place do we give the person that got second place such a platform?
we're past Donald Trump. We're in a complete new presidency, and here she is still. And why is who would want to go to that class? I'm sorry. Just why is she still being allowed to teach a master class?
Right. I'm really disappointed in this. Not for any obvious reasons, but really just because I was expecting, if Hillary Clinton was going to be teaching a master class, wouldn't it be on scrubbing your email server or how to avoid jail time? I mean, that to me is what I think we would all expect from a master class from Hillary Clinton. But what I don't understand is how your husband is in the middle of one of the biggest human rights trials in history. Or I'm sorry, not human rights, human trafficking. Your husband is involved in one of the biggest human trafficking trials in history, and you're going on a media blitz. Like, I would be keeping my head low if I were you.
Yeah, also, too, speaking of President Bill Clinton, he's going to be on Masterclass December 19th.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Just what the people need is Bill Clinton giving them anything.
How to diddle kids and get away with it from former President Bill Clinton.
Also, too, maybe how to put out a hit on somebody. Maybe people you don't like.
Exactly.
How do you get rid of them?
How to get away with murder.
Give us some useful information. How to get away with murder with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. That's what we really want.
That's something that I would spend about $15 to $23 a month on if I'm hearing about that. So that's what you could do, because you actually have President George W. Bush. He's going to be on Masterclass in the spring. There are a few people that I think I would maybe want to take classes from, but those three people, I don't know.
I'm interested to find out what former President Bush is going to be doing his master class on. But they'll never invite former President Trump.
No chance. Maybe if he did a master class on how to throw out an exceptional first pitch,
I
would definitely take that class from George W. Bush. That's one of the most legendary of all time. But the left, they don't want us to have fun. They don't want you to celebrate the holidays. Don't go home with your family. Stay home, shelter, whatever. They're trying to ruin Christmas. We'll break that down in 90 seconds.
We as conservatives have got to stop playing defense. We are going to get into an offensive mindset here at this conference.
Good Ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at GoodRanchers.com.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Ellie, Byrd, and Alex Clark. You got the Spillover coming out in a little bit. I know I'm on the edge of my seat for that. I can't wait. Those have seriously been so fun to listen to.
Thank you. Yes. Today we have hostage negotiator Ericka Stropka. She works at the Tucson Police Department, and she has some amazing stories about how to negotiate with somebody when they're on the brink of either hurting themselves or someone else, and what that pressure is like, that stress is like. And she just gives some incredible examples of stories of things she's experienced in her career as a hostage negotiator.
Because I know we were covering the crime wave yesterday, and there's been a crime wave in Tucson as well. So I'm really interested to hear what she has to say.
Absolutely.
So make sure you tune into that right after we're done here. But the left, they try to make sure you don't have fun. They don't want you to go home for the holidays. They don't want you to have a holly jolly Christmas. They want you to stay at home and just bow down to Lord Fauci. That we'll get into a little bit what he's had to say about this Christmas. But President Biden, obviously he's been pushing vaccines quite a bit, and he's trying to push it to a sense of instilling fear. I think a lot of this is what it comes down to. So what President Biden said last year, look at them. The Grinch that stole Christmas, President Biden right there. He said, no, I don't think vaccines should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand it to be mandatory. That's what he said last year. And then also remember what Press Secretary Jen Psaki said. So she echoed that, saying vaccine mandates are not the role of the federal government. And then you're hearing now President Biden saying if you have a company with more than 100 employees, got to get vaccinated. And if you don't do it, that's going to cost you almost $14,000 for each violation. We've already had small businesses run to the ground. They needed our help to keep their businesses afloat during the holidays, and it's a huge time for them, especially too. We have Black Friday, and then we have Cyber Monday. We got Small Business Tuesday. Is that what it is? I think it's
yes.
Shop small, yeah.
yeah, it's like shop small,
yeah.
and you see the left. Every single policy they're throwing out there, every single politician, they're running small businesses into the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, we've been telling people, you know, hold the line and all this, and I thought that everything was kind of paused, at least for the moment, in the courts, right?
It is.
Yeah. So we've seen different state judges, constitutional judges, luckily, shut this stuff down. And then also, too, there's a little bit of more work that needs to be done there. I know the Senate passed there, and then it's going to go to the House, and then it goes to President Biden's desk. So there's been steps that have needed to be taken. But here, it's just people need to hold the line. And I kind of wish, you know, politicians would maybe take a break, kind of like Hollywood does during December. It's like, take a break. Like, let us celebrate the holidays and have a little bit of cheer, right?
Yeah, it's just, of course, they're to get in office. They're telling you what they want you to think, and then they get the power, and it's just a complete new narrative. Oh no, vaccines, boosters, lockdowns again, even 2 years out of the pandemic. I mean,
well, you know, now they were talking about, you know, the evil unvaccinated people. Now they're talking about the unboosted. So even if you get your vaccines and then you don't get the boosters, now you are being ostracized for not getting the boosters. And they're going to keep doing that because we will not know now, but in 75 years or whatever they approve for us to find out, just wait till we see how much money Big Pharma made from all of these boosters that they made and all of that, you know?
Yeah, and then obviously too, like we live in a crazy world, so anytime we have these kind of discussions, once again, shocker, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional at all, but these are things that we need to talk about. Any single time you do this stuff, consult your doctor, consult a medical professional, because we live in a free country. You should be able to decide for yourself, but I feel like that's why we talk about this so much. You should have that freedom. And me, like many other people, I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies. And have you seen Jingle All the Way?
Yes.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger. Obviously,
no,
screw your freedom. But
I've actually not seen that.
Oh,
you've never seen that one?
No.
But it's funny. They have a main character, Turbo Man. That's the big superhero, and then he has his sidekick, Booster. I was dying laughing because basically Arnold Schwarzenegger just waited till the last minute, like me and a lot of other people do during Christmas shopping during the Christmas season. And everyone's just like, oh, I can't find a Turbo Man, but they're like, we have plenty of boosters, and everyone's like, we don't want it. And I feel like that's what I've been hearing so much from people now too. So I was just getting a chuckle out of that when I was watching Jingle All the Way, a movie that you should watch. I'm kind of surprised you haven't seen it.
I'll put that on the list.
Yes.
I recently watched Bad Santa. That's the one.
That's actually one I have never seen.
Me neither.
That's the one that has what's that weird guy, Sling Blade, and Angelina Jolie's ex-boyfriend.
Oh,
I can see the guy's face.
Me too. I'm like, I know who you're talking about.
I can't think of it.
Billy
Bob Thornton. Billy Bob Thornton.
There we go.
Okay, so I recently watched that and I hate that movie. I decided that I'm never watching that movie anymore because it makes me feel terrible. It's like this really gross, like drunk Santa who terrorizes this poor kid who's really excited because he thinks like you're Santa, but he's a horrible guy. So I really don't like that movie. But my boyfriend recently went to New York City and he's unvaccinated. And it was so sad because he's never been to New York City before. He was so excited to go. It's his first time to be there.
And like at Christmas time.
It's
so pretty.
And he had to ask another conservative couple friend of ours, where am I even allowed to go in this city? And he was given, I am not kidding you, a list that had 2 restaurants on it. In the entire city
of New York.
2 restaurants where they said, these are the 2 restaurants in Manhattan or whatever that are not going to deny you service if you come up and you can't prove your vaccination card.
And then too, it's like, we saw what happened in New York City with Fox News's big like all-American tree as well, and you got kids that are being forced into.
Oh, and that guy, by the way, the tree arsonist, was arrested and then released immediately.
Oh, okay.
So we see more of that.
I knew he was arrested. Did not hear about the being released immediately, but not surprised.
Which shouldn't that be? Shouldn't he be considered a hate crime?
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. But hey, they just got Jussie Smollett, so they already got their hate crime for the year.
Right.
I think they checked off that box.
That's a big one, I will say that.
But another part of the left ruining Christmas is, I feel like especially since a lot of us just travel. We went to the Winter Gala. A lot of people are traveling during this time too. And people you see they're still wearing double masks. Or they're just terrified of a new variant that comes out, and they're just living in this fear. And when they're flying, it seems like a lot of that fear comes up. Like, people already have a fear of flying, then you have to wear a mask, and then you have to go through all of this. And it feels like, especially too, when we talk about it consistently, this moral conundrum. Everyone's just like, oh my gosh, if I put it below my nose in an airport, am I a bad person if I don't wear it? People are still going through that. I mean, I unapologetically just waltz through there, and it's the Charlie Kirk challenge that I know producer Connor's brought up before.
I do that too. I haven't been wearing a mask when I'm walking. I mean, I do whenever I'm boarding and on the plane. Obviously, you have to. But in the airport, I have not worn my mask at all, and I have traveled a bajillion times in the last year, and no one has ever said anything to me.
Well, on the way here, I was literally just talking about this. I went to the gate the whole time, did not have a mask on, just completely forgot because I haven't been wearing them into places because it's not really where I live. And so the lady all the way up until they checked me in, and then they were finally like, oh, hey, do you have a mask? I'm like, I literally completely forgot. So wasn't even thinking about that. And then I put it on to go to TSA, and but I'm like a below the nose for a little bit because I'm hot, and then I'm going to airport. But you feel like a criminal. People are like looking at you like, what are you doing? You know, it's weird.
And then too, the mandate has really hurt airline pilots and employees. We had a few people sit on this couch a few weeks ago talking about that. They're letting go of people that a lot of pilots too, they've served our country. And for them to think that, hey, I just had a little bit more years of service that I wanted to get in with Southwest, Delta, United, whatever it may be, it's been hit hard. And then now you're thinking, are these airlines short-staffed? Do I feel safe enough to get on this plane? And then there's already just another fear on top of fear, and it's the left ruining that experience for you. And then also another thing too is you're trying to send Christmas gifts. I send them way too late myself. And it's not a good idea to wait.
Yeah, I'm sending.
You got it all done already?
I have everyone done except my boyfriend, and I was very angry with him last night, and I said, you are sending me a list. I have no idea what to get you. He is the type of person that says, I don't want anything, and I have everything, you know? And so those are the worst. I'm like, I literally don't know. So I told him, you are giving me a list. So I have to shop for him tomorrow, but everyone else in my family, I'm done.
I hate to be this guy, but I feel like usually the roles are reversed there.
But
where the girl might be like, I don't know, I got everything.
Right. No.
They're hard to shop for.
For the record, I sent a detailed list of all the things I want. I had no problem.
With hyperlinks to everything too, I'm sure.
But I do have to go to the post office tomorrow, and I have to send all my family's packages because they live in Indiana.
Yeah.
And then that's a smart thing to do too. And anybody watching this, you should probably be sending your Christmas gifts probably within the next week at the latest.
At the latest. You should really do it ASAP.
Like even every website you go on to buy stuff, it literally says, if you notice this, it's like, we'll be here by December 21st. We'll get here. If you order now, we'll be here by Christmas Eve. And I'm like, feel like that's new. Like, I feel like it just like was known. It's going to be the same shipping. But now everything's like delayed.
Yeah.
And they got a new controversial service standard that's set now too. So it's not only taking longer, it's more expensive. So like everything a part of your holiday experience, you just experienced that probably with Thanksgiving. You go to the grocery store, some of those shelves are empty, and then what you need to get is way more expensive. And at the same time too, you're going to the pump and you're like, I don't know, I might not be able to get everything that I want to give somebody for Thanksgiving or get for Christmas or things like that.
Or even get there.
Yeah.
Get to where you need your family all is going to be, or where you usually go and stuff for Christmas.
Right.
And then also too, like we can get down to the bottom of this whole thing, like the true meaning of Christmas. Obviously, you just want to be together with people. Don't live in fear anymore. But there is a sense of we do want to give gifts. Like we want. It feels good to do that. But now, if we're going to talk a little bit later about inflation, but if inflation's up, your bank account is down.
Yeah.
So it's hurting every single American here, and I think it's just really ruining experiences as well.
Well, the other problem that I'm experiencing, not only yes, prices are higher, but there is nothing to buy.
Yeah.
So even if I do have money to spend and I do want to buy gifts for people, I can't find anything because I'm being told it's all on a ship in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, it's all back order.
Yes. I have tried to buy so many dresses this month for different events and stuff for the holidays, and I'm told you will not get this. It's on pre-order till April. I'm not kidding. It's asinine.
It will be completely out of style by April, probably. Yeah, you're like the wintertime dress.
Yes, it's a wintertime dress. What am I going to do with this?
Well, I'm not worried about buying dresses, but I do have a few stocking stuffer ideas.
Okay.
Number one, let me put this down and let me pick this up right here.
Oh,
so
geez, what is this?
we got a Fauci in a pouchy.
What is this?
Fauci in a pouchy.
He has elf ears.
That's
Look
what
at
we
that.
said. Looks like a little goblin from
That
Harry
is
Potter.
Lord Fauci right there, and then I'm not going to say what it says at the very bottom of this little
Let
little
me
thing
look.
here.
Let me look.
Here,
Yeah.
check that out. See if you want to read
Little
that little
Fauci
bottom
is
there. We
here.
just showed you that picture.
It says
The bottom. Ericka.
with your very own Fauci in a pouchy, you can put him on your finger like the little puppet that he is. That's amazing.
That's
It
a good
says-
place to stop.
Well, I think this is
like
fine.
I want to.
Well, now it's a Fauci on a couchy.
It's a Fauci in a pouchy to a Fauci on a couchy. You think this is too bad to say? Oh, I think this is funny.
Go to littlefauci.com. I know these got sent to us here, and this is the funniest thing I have seen, and I can't wait to give this. I know my dad probably watches every single episode of this, but hopefully he's not watching this one because this is going straight into his stock.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, this
I
needs
was
to be a
saying-
white elephant gift.
Yes, that's what I was saying. But I know my dad is watching, and I definitely am going to put that in his stocking, and he's going to love it.
And then I love this whole thing here, but
And it's heavy, too.
It definitely is.
You could use it
they
on
ain't
your,
messing
on
around
your
with those.
desk, little paperweight, anything.
But the thing about Dr. Fauci, too, is obviously he's tried to ruin every single holiday.
The little bad left. Yeah.
It's a little elf on the shelf.
Devil and the angel.
Yeah, that's
the
our
devil.
devil. Yeah.
Wear your mask.
But-
Get vaccinated.
Dr. Fauci is trying to tell people or families that they should have their own little vaccine mandate. So it's just trying to tear families apart, too.
Literally.
They tore apart your friendships. We've had a lot of those conversations here. But now you're thinking, oh, Aunt Susie's coming over. Should she have the jab or not? I don't know. Like,
Really,
should we do a checkpoint at
Do you
at
need
the
a
door?
bodyguard at the door with a list? I mean, that's what, for your family to come over. And unfortunately, I feel like some leftists would kind of like this. Like, oh, you can't come around grandma this year because you're unvaxxed or something.
That is happening. In the Cute Conservatives Facebook
Yes.
group, the girls have been sharing how, is anyone else not allowed to come home for Christmas? With Thanksgiving, was anyone not allowed to come home for Thanksgiving? I was told by my family I was uninvited. And that was
crazy.
really sad.
That is sad.
Yeah, and that's something that everyone is dealing with right now. And it's so hard, too, because we talk about the culture war. That's going to take a long time. And you have leftist politicians. You got Lord Fauci telling you that, once again, if you're going to be hanging out indoors, a time that we can really come together, celebrate the season of giving, celebrate the birth of Jesus, everything, come together with your family, have a good meal, have a good time. And he's telling you to be scared. And not only be scared, but tell you that, hey, maybe some of those family members, those friends, those are second-class citizens. Those are people that don't really care about you. They might find the perfect gift for you, but maybe the perfect gift would be getting jabbed. That's what they're telling you. And it's absolutely divisive, and it's ruining Christmas. And that's what's so sad to me. And we can go on and on about all this. I know we got a segment coming up next, Tweets of the Week. We're going to talk about Jussie Smollett, and then a little bit later, we have a little bit more to talk about how the left is ruining Christmas. And I have a little thing I want to say about that. I think there's an agenda I'm going to coin myself.
Okay.
It's the just this, just that, just wait.
Just
Oh,
this,
I like
Just
that.
that, just wait
wait.
agenda. I'm going to break that down. But once again, too, get yourself one of these Fauci in a pouchies, and it's the perfect gift for you this Christmas. I love it. All right, coming up next, we got Tweets of the Week. We're talking about Jussie Smollett. A lot of good stuff. See you in 90 seconds.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona. El socialismo no funciona.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. What's a Mike Pompeo, Kayleigh McEnany, Al Mohler, and the movie-making Kendrick brothers have in common? They've all been on First Liberty Live. First Liberty Live is a weekly video webcast all about your religious freedom. You'll hear stories from the front lines in the fight to protect your first freedom. It's produced by our friends at First Liberty Institute. You can download the First Liberty Live app on your phone or watch online at firstliberty.com. That's firstliberty.com. All right, we're back with Ellie and Alex. Tweets of the week. Some of these tweets are from this week, and some of them are resurfaced because we got the receipts, baby. We are talking about Jussie Smollett, as Dave Chappelle would put that. We have that clip a little later. Hopefully that puts you on the edge of your seat. But there were so many good quote tweets we saw yesterday after Jussie Smollett got charged. It was 5 out of 6?
Right.
5 out of 6 charges because it was a total hoax. And it's something that I think needs to be surfaced. People need to know about this because this was a total hoax and it made Donald Trump supporters out to be evil once again. It put white people out to be evil once again. And he tried to use his fame and his fortune to push some narrative that was only dividing the country more.
Well, what's interesting is that he probably would have avoided jail time if he wouldn't have perjured himself. But since he did that, now he probably will get a year or 2 in jail.
Yeah, I think so too. And then this first one, it comes from former press secretary Sean Spicer. This was about VP Kamala Harris's tweet. So he said, "I'll take tweets that don't age well for 1,000.
Yeah.
Hashtag Jussie Smollett."
And she is, you know, you can hear crickets. No one from the Biden administration is saying anything about their tweets about Jussie.
Of course not.
No, they're not going to be held accountable for,
And then two, we're going to throw that Kamala tweet up there, VP Kamala Harris, talking about how this is a modern day lynching there. We can throw that back up on the screen. So Jussie Smollett, one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for a quick recovery, and then this is where it's too much, of course. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate.
Did she even know him, or was she sent an email blast talking point from the left saying, "Hey, everybody, let's all put out these tweets, you know, about Jussie Smollett and how it's a hate crime and whatever." Like, I mean, how close did...
Well, always so kind and gentle.
Yeah. Like, how does she know he's kind and gentle?
Yeah.
She has no idea.
She watched Empire.
It's all about this hierarchy of victimization. That's all it is, where it's like, well, not only is he a black guy, but he's a gay black guy, and he
was targeted because of that on the street at 2 a.m. because they would know that.
Yeah, and it fit into a specific narrative, and they ran with it. And of course, all these people that are in the White House right now, everybody, all these leftists in Washington, they're going to act on it right away. They're going to be like, boom, right away. They're guilty.
I mean, the one thing that we should be coming after Jussie for, you know, or people should have been coming after him for, is not because he was gay and black. It's because he got a Subway sandwich willingly. That's the most suspicious part of it all.
And then I love what Charlie Kirk had to say too. So he tweeted about this whole situation and compared it to actually Alec Baldwin and a few others. Jussie Smollett swearing under oath that there was no hoax is as believable as Alec Baldwin saying he didn't pull the trigger, or the media saying that an SUV murdered 6 people in Waukesha. If you haven't realized it by now, the left thinks you're stupid. They do. They really do. They're going to throw out these false narratives, and they think you're just going to read this tweet and like that's what it is. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of dumb people out there. He's not lying.
A lot of people who do. They just read, oh, Kamala Harris said it, it's true. Yes, Vice President Kamala Harris said it, it's completely true, I believe it.
And then this next one too, we got, I love this clip. If you have not seen Dave Chappelle's special, Sticks and Stones, and it is one of the funniest specials I have ever seen. The guy does not align with conservatives completely, but he says a lot of stuff that's really spot on. I think that's what you always cover in politics. It's like, hey, Rihanna might come out there and say something. Cardi B, they're not going to perfectly align with us, but they have little bits that are downright hilarious and also downright truthful. So this one, Benny Johnson actually tweeted out this little snippet from Dave Chappelle's special. Check it out.
Okay, Mr. Smollett, please tell me what happened. All right, 2 a.m. You left the house at 2 a.m. It's minus 16 degrees. All right. You were walking. All right. And where were you going? Subway. Sandwiches? That's when the men approach you? Did you see them? Do you have any? Okay, what they have on? MAGA hats. MAGA hats on in Chicago. Excuse me one second, Mr. Smollett. Frank, come here for a second. Find out where Kanye West was last night.
If you have not watched that whole special, it's hilarious, but he goes on, and that's how he starts it out. And that's why I always say Jussie Smollett, because that's what always gets stuck in my mind. He's like, so yeah, he says, no black person really wants to get attacked, especially when you hear news like this very black, very gay, very French actor, Jussie Smollett. you heard of the guy? And it's so funny how we can use comedy during times like this, because he's like, he even says in the special, he's clearly lying.
Oh, wait, you're really actually kind of good at a Chappelle impression.
That's the only good Chappelle impression I could do. But I love this clip. It just got resurfaced and shared so much. I know we have contributor Graham Allen that shared that as well. And once again, that was from contributor Benny Johnson. So, like, stuff like that, it's like, he's lying.
Well, and it, you know, watching that just reminds me, the MAGA hat part is just so funny. In -16 Chicago weather.
Yes.
I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Indiana. No one is wearing just a ball cap when it's that cold. I mean, you are bundled up if you're outside at all, which is even funnier because he's like, yeah, I was just walking around 2 a.m., -16 degrees. From the beginning, this story never made sense. And I remember in radio saying that and, you know, getting called back by my bosses and saying, how in the world could you discount this gay black man story? I'm like, because it's BS.
How dare you, Alex?
Because it's BS, because none of it adds up.
And he said they shouted, this is MAGA country. And I'm like, I'm sorry, in Chicago, I don't
not
think
MAGA.
that's not gonna, they're not gonna say that. Yeah, you're in the wrong place for that.
That's what Dave Chappelle says in the special too. He's like, what?
In Chicago?
Yeah.
That's something I would say. That's not something some white person would say. That's why I think that is so funny. Check out that special. That was fantastic. One of the best tweets we saw after yesterday's verdict was Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, the host of the Ben Shapiro Show. This is what he had to say about his attacker. Tonight, Jussie Smollett can rest knowing that his attacker has been convicted.
Very good. Justice has been served.
My favorite one ever. That was, he never misses. That was so funny.
Very good.
That was so spot on. And there's plenty of other tweets too we're going to show you, but another one I want to add on is the cast of The Big Bang Theory. They had a Justice for Jussie. They had that, and that was another good one. I know Will Witt shared a photo where he said best actor, and he had a picture of Jussie Smollett outside of the Oscars.
Definitely not. It was a rough day for Jussie Smollett yesterday because, you know, not only did he find out that he was probably going to prison, but also found out that he's not as good of an actor as he thought.
So this next one is from Congresswoman AOC. So she reacted pretty quick when this came out. So this is from January 29, 2019. There's no such thing as racially charged. This attack was not possibly homophobic. It was a racist and homophobic attack. You don't like what is happening to our country, then work to change it. It is one of the jobs to water down or sugarcoat the rise of hate crimes. You starting to see a pattern here, people? So that was right after it happened.
They don't wait. They don't wait to see, you know, any additional facts that might pop up in these cases. It's like with Nick Sandmann. It's one and done. It's Kyle Rittenhouse, one and done.
Yeah, it fit the narrative at the time, anti-Trump, and that was all it was about. It fit the narrative, and they went with it. They didn't want to wait to know what happened after, and that's what happened.
Right.
They need to be held accountable for saying these things. That's why it is funny to make light of it right now, because of that. They need to be held accountable for saying these things.
You have to wonder if today, if a crazy, you know, thing like this happened, and they said, you know, somebody shouted, "It's Biden country," if it would get the same publicity and blow up in the media.
No chance. But speaking of President Biden, he obviously weighed in on the situation right away too. We're going to show that tweet. So President Biden had to say, what happened today to Jussie Smollett must never be tolerated in this country. We must stand up and demand that we no longer give this hate safe harbor, that homophobia and racism have no place in our streets or in our hearts. We are with you, Jussie. January 29th.
Well, we know he
Final
definitely
take
didn't
here.
write that.
No. He can't even get word. No, there's no way. That was just copy and paste for Mr. Biden.
Yeah. Well, good work, everybody. And also good work, all the conservatives out there that made sure they quoted these tweets and showed the receipts. And that's what's crazy to me is they don't get rid of these tweets. They don't acknowledge them whatsoever. But coming up next, we're going to talk about an inflated Christmas. And we're not talking about the ones on your front yard. See you in 90 seconds.
Good Ranchers, straight from the American farm. 100% American meat, 100% of the time. Delivered straight to your door.
Wait, are those my Good Rancher steaks? I'll be taking these.
Claim your 10 free bistro fillets with your next order with promo code TPUSA Live at goodranchers.com.
Conservatives! Politics is now on TPUSA Live. It'll be here every day in case you want to hear me out along with the rest of the Turning Point USA team. Don't miss out on all the conservative.
I know I saw it yesterday.
All right, welcome back to TPUSA Live. We got Ellie and Alex. We got to talk about an inflated Christmas, inflation, and oh man, when you're pumping up those inflatables in your front yard, those are going up, but Biden's approval rating is going down.
Yeah.
It's going down big time. So President Joe Biden's overall rating stabilized at a low level of 41%, according to the CNBC All America survey. And then also to get this. So there is a 46% approval and 48% disapproval when it comes to the handling of coronavirus. What's your reaction to that, Ellie?
I'm honestly surprised it's even at 41%. Honestly, I'm surprised it's even that high. And it's, my thing is always with these, who is taking, where do they find these people to poll? You know what I mean? Where are they finding these people? Because how can you watch what he's doing and listen to everything he is doing, his plans, and then even have any bit of approval at all for him?
Well, of course, under President Biden, we've had more deaths due to coronavirus than under President Trump, although President Trump had the body count ticker on CNN scaring people to death, you know, saying like, this is how many people are dying due to coronavirus. And no one is talking about that with President Biden. So his whole thing during the election was campaigning on how he has all these amazing ideas to help with coronavirus and stuff. None of it has worked. But the people that are saying like, well, I still kind of approve, they're clearly clueless, and they are just going to be loyal because he's not Trump. And that's just what it comes down to for some of these people, that they hate Trump more than they love President Biden, and so they will just continue to be loyal.
And then when it comes to the economic approval rating, so that sank as well. So 37% approve compared to 56% who disapprove. And then we're talking about an inflated Christmas. Inflation's at a 39-year high as of November. At the end of November, 39-year high. So what I was saying earlier was when inflation's up, your bank account is down. And especially it's hitting people's pocketbook during the holidays, and it hurts. And it just makes your Christmas season the worst.
But they are in a cult. I mean, so even though this stuff is affecting people and their families on a day-to-day basis, especially during a time of year that's so important like Christmas, they're never going to admit, which is the sad part, that this is due to leftist politicians. This is leftist policies that are hurting you and your family's ability to make ends meet.
And then too, it's 6.8% higher than a year earlier, and then the largest 12-month increase since 1982. So President Biden had to say, this is my top goal of my administration. So this is when I get into my just this, just that, just wait policy. It's just a mask. It's just a vaccine. It's just a couple weeks. It's just missing a few holidays. We just need a few more $1 million and we'll get there. And that's what they're trying to tell you, is all this, just that, and just wait a little bit longer and then we're going to build back better. And I think, unfortunately, people are trusting that.
Yeah.
They're telling people to be patient. I know your pocketbooks are hurting right now. I know gas is expensive, but like, I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus. That's what you heard from President Biden. And they're telling people, just wait. Hold out for a little longer, but people can't. People have lost their businesses.
Yeah.
And for some people, they've lost lives and they haven't been able to see them. So it's like, oh, just wait. But don't worry, we're going to build back better, and it's going to be worth it, especially by the end of the 4 years. And unfortunately, people are still trusting that while they're spending more and they're losing more than they ever had.
Yeah, and I think it's really sad because unfortunately you still have those people who they do want to put their faith in the government because, like, why not? This government should be helping us. They should, or that's what you think. They should. They want you to be healthy. They want you to be happy. They want your business to run well. But then you look at the pandemic and small businesses had the more restrictions and these big businesses didn't. And then they're still with this another variant trying to push this whole thing on you still, and that's what's sad. The people who are like, oh, just do this, we'll get out of it. Just do this for your neighbor, and you'll be fine. Yep. And that's the thing. Like the sad thing, by now, do you not see it? Like you said, the left wants you stupid. They think you're stupid.
And unfortunately, some people are very stupid.
You know what's the thing? Just say it all again.
So, just this, just that, just wait.
Okay, so the just wait.
Just this, just that, just wait.
Just this, just that, just wait.
Yeah.
All of that reminds me, have you ever worked somewhere where you had just like a super crappy boss who would pile on your responsibilities? They would ask you to work longer shifts. They would expect all of this from you. You work there for maybe years and years. You never get a raise. And they say the same thing. They say,
just this, just that, just wait.
yeah, just this. Okay, well, just that. Now, just
one
wait a
more
little
thing,
bit longer. Yeah, just your raise is coming. You're going to get the promotion that you want. They do that. That's when you know you work for like a corrupt company, and that is what it's like under this government.
It's empty promises. You want people in power that underpromise and overdeliver. But what we got is
and that's exactly what we got with President Trump. He made a lot of promises, but he over-delivered.
Yep.
Even the promises, not only did President Trump keep all of the promises that he made, he went beyond that. There were so many things that he ended up doing in his presidency that he had never talked about doing and that I had not anticipated that he was going to do. And that is exactly what you're talking about.
And then two, people we have the receipts of these things. We just showed tweets of the week. So people are going to remember what's said on Twitter. Unfortunately, President Trump, we can't really remember what he said because the tweets are gone.
There.
But in general, we do have to remember everything that he did and start taking notes.
Yeah.
Start keeping receipts of what this administration is telling you. And at the end of this 4 years, I guarantee you they're not going to live up to it, just like President Trump.
Yeah.
He lived up to it. This administration won't.
But even back to the polling with Biden and how people are ranking him right now, and just the way that President Trump was covered, from even just him running the election, of course, it was all Hillary's going to win, Hillary's going to win, and then the way Biden has been covered from the whole time, it is, and still, and some organizations that usually are more leftist, they are doing a good job with kind of being like, this is true, but then you still have people saying like, oh, the media isn't covering President Biden as well, and I'm like, well, you can't even look at President Trump's presidency and this one and even compare how they treat one or the other. It's just, it should tell you everything you need to know.
Well, I think part of the problem with getting, your everyday regular Americans to have their eyes opened when it comes to President Biden is sometimes it's just not in their face. So I think sometimes they forget about it if they're not super plugged into something like Twitter.
Yep.
They don't ever hear or see from him. Even in during the election, he was never seen. So it's easier for them just to be like, well, everything must be going fine. I never hear anything about it. The media doesn't report it, and he never says anything. But with President Trump, he was very out there in your face saying things good or bad all the time. And so he was constantly in their mind. And so maybe the move going forward for our conservative presidents is, okay, maybe we do need to wheel that back in a little bit. And maybe that's the move. Maybe the left has figured that out, that we're a little behind on, is maybe we do need to just...
I think they figured out how to baby people.
Yes.
Yes, how to, because Trump, that was, he was in your face, and he was unapologetic.
Which a lot of people liked.
Yes,
I liked it.
I did too, yeah.
Yep. Well, because they called for accountability, because you have a bunch of leftist journalists there, and then now every single time we show Press Secretary Jen Psaki, there's one person that's actually asking legit questions and looking for accountability. It's Peter Doocy from Fox News.
Right.
But when President Trump was in power, you got the entire room that is just waiting to ask something.
With President Trump, you always got 100% transparency. He always said what was going on behind the scenes. We never had any question about what was going on. He said stuff that, his team probably wished he wouldn't have shared with the American people.
And it was always him telling you.
And it was him directly, the president of the United States, telling you what's going on. With President Biden, I thought maybe that the American people and American voters would be like, oh, I hate this. I feel like everything's being hidden. But no, it seems like, well, if I don't see it, I don't hear it, then like
out of sight,
everything's
out of
fine.
mind.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
Like-
So that's what's weird.
Well, and then I don't know if you saw the tweet either, but there was a tweet out from President Biden's administration, his official account, that was saying like, oh, the most jobs created within the first year out of, like, blew every other president out of the water. It's like, well, of course people are going to start working again because you told them they couldn't work.
Yeah.
And then once you get the economy going again, you tell people they can finally work, of course there's going to be a lot of jobs. And obviously he just got lambasted for that online, but that's what they're trying to tell people, and people are going to take that at service level, and they were like, wow, look at all those jobs compared to, President Trump, and then you look at President Reagan and all these people, it's like, wow, maybe he has done quite a bit, but people are very, very naive.
I mean, it's amazing when you move a restriction that you put into place, then that people can go back to work, and then or go and find a job now that the lockdowns are over. I mean, that's just, but nowadays I know that people, I don't know, that has created kind of people not wanting to work and get back out there as they used to. It's created kind of gone back a little bit in society, I think, with that.
Well, I think you're talking about people starting to open their eyes. I think especially when your pocketbook starts hurting, people are seeing that in every single facet we've talked about on this show, that's when they're starting to realize there obviously is buyer's remorse right now. And there's things that can be done in order to rectify this situation. And a lot of it too is stop relying on government. So many people have just relied so much. They're like, you know what, maybe President Biden can do this with his administration, just continue to spend more money. And people think that, but it's like the more money it's going to be spent, it's going to hurt you more. And that's what I think this administration continues to do, is just throw money at stuff. That's it. Not really address it at all, but I'm going to sign this, I'm sign that, throw some money at it, and hopefully it gets figured out. But that's hopefully where people are starting to really open their eyes. And I think especially when we hear some news about how 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August. It was the most since the Department of Labor started tracking that data since 2000.
Wow, say that number again?
So 4.3 million Americans quit their jobs in August. It's the most since the Department of Labor started tracking the data since 2000.
Wow, that is totally because of mandates,
Mm-hmm.
It has
to be.
Yeah.
That's healthcare workers, that's half of the heroes that we all were putting on a pedestal during the pandemic, and now they're the ones being laid off too. And
that's the saddest to me is how they
prompted.
They used them so hardcore.
Yep.
Our first responders, our nurses, our doctors, they were everything of the sort when they wanted something from them and needed something from them, and then they were nothing. They were just cast aside like garbage when they didn't need them anymore, when they weren't willing to promote their agenda.
Yeah, and then also too, really knowing that the government just coddled everybody. They told you just like, oh, we'll take care of you, stay home. And there's a lot of really lazy people out there. And I think there's a lot of us out there, you watching the show, and then even now, like I know I lost my job, but I knew I was just like, I don't want to rely on the government to pay me to not work. I hate being at home. But I think that's something we need to instill in people too, is like, stop relying on the government, stop having them tell you like, oh, there's gonna be another check that comes out, and then that'll keep you afloat, and then this next one will. And that's where it's like, we have a worker shortage. People are leaving their jobs because they're getting forced out, and then also when we have a truck driver shortage, going back to Christmas again. It's just like, it's ruining people's Christmas, and it's not, oh, the roads aren't open, or the ports aren't open 24/7, President Joe Biden, like, That's not the case. It's people. You're telling people they can't work because of a mandate, and then you're also telling people you can make more money to stay at home. Why would you want to be a truck driver when you can make more money just sitting on the couch, eating bonbons, watching Jingle All the Way for the 40th time during Christmas?
Well, unfortunately, no one, you have to work. Unfortunately, no one really wants to get up every day and go work. Work is, it's tough, but you have to make a living, to have money in your pocket. And then also, I think that it's a great thing that my generation has been. They think that the government has all this money. I'm like, the government has nothing. It's our money. It's the people's money, and that's the biggest thing that I think people don't understand, is that this money nothing's free. Nothing is free, and so the stimulus checks will come back to us soon, and we're already seeing it with inflation, high gas, everything.
Speaking of an inflated Christmas, though, as we wrap this up, this is the only inflated Christmas that I want to see, right there. Boom.
Wow, that's
I want to see
beautiful.
inflated Santas. I want inflated snowmen, and that's the only inflation I want this Christmas.
Where is
Because
this?
I have no idea where that place is. I'm pretty sure that was a photo I got from some random house in Virginia. But I know. But
There is a autistic old man on Twitter not on Twitter, on TikTok. He is a neighbor who hangs out with him, and he's so precious, and he loves Christmas lights, and he always gets he gets so excited. He's like, let's go look at Christmas lights, and he will drive this older man with autism around, and they will look at the lights, and he will be like, stop, slow down, go slower, let's really look. And I mean, he just appreciates that so much, and I do too.
Yeah. That's something we need more during Christmas too. Like go out, just see the lights, go with your family, and just little things like that. That needs to be promoted a lot more. Obviously, sometimes we're going to tell you some doom and gloom stuff, but like we're going to give you the truth. We're going to tell you what's going on here, because even hearing some of these stats, it's shocking to you, it's shocking to everybody. But there is some great content like that we need to see. Wrap it up with us.
One of my favorite date night ideas, if you're looking for one during Christmas time, during the holidays, is to get matching Christmas pajamas with your significant other. You get in the car, you don't have to leave your car. The COVID freaks, the COVIDians will love this. You get in the car and you bring milk and cookies and you just drive around to the richest neighborhoods in your area and you look at Christmas lights.
And they have like the shows too. A lot of neighborhoods, like I know we do.
You're going to get to break this down a lot more in our one last thing. We've got a new dating poll we got to show, and probably a few more ideas. See you in 3 minutes.
In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians.
A lot of the soldiers were very aggressive, so the women did get raped.
What we call huelte. Huelte means a place of suffering, dying, starvation, nothing good. Just like the Nazi concentration camps.
I didn't realize how corrupt things were. I didn't realize what kind of environment we were living in.
We had no running water, we had no power.
They de-incentivize people from, opportunity. That's why our suicide rate has climbed up astronomical rates.
I moved from the poorest county in America, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, to the richest area in the country, the Navajo Indian Reservation. There is no difference. The poorest and richest reservations in our nation suffer from identical problems. This is not anything new. This is an everyday occurrence in all tribal governments.
So my life and my tale and my truth has been to fight socialism, and I'm hoping that I can wake up as many Navajos as I can to tell them that you can do this, even if I have to fight you to save you. And I think that's what I'm also projecting to my people. Even though they are so harsh on social media and they completely hammer at me, I tell them, I'll be here even if I have to fight you to save you.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. You might have just saw that commercial for Ericka Fest, and if you don't have tickets already, honestly, what are you doing? You got to go to tpusa.com/Ericka Fest. You can use promo code John for 25% off, or you can use promo code Alex.
Yes.
But I actually would really prefer if you use John.
He says, I would really appreciate it.
Please, if I got anything this Christmas, please use promo code John. and you get 25% off, and then you get to hang out with us.
Yeah.
What a dream, right? And then you get to hang out with some of your favorite country artists, some of the greatest speakers across the conservative movement. It's going to be, yes. What do you got?
I ordered my first ever pair of real cowgirl boots for
Oh,
Ericka
let's
Fest.
go.
I've never owned cowgirl boots. I am not a Western country type of person. I don't
Yeehaw.
do any country
See, that's right up
concerts or
my
anything
alley.
before. This is my first country concert and everything, and I'm so glad it's happening at Ericka Fest.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. I can't wait to see those
Country
boots.
concert.
They're so
Let's go.
cute. They're different than anything anyone ever has, of course, because I
Ooh,
do
okay.
everything different and better. Hello.
Alex Clark is different? What? Shocking.
Different. People that know me would say not in the best way. No, but the boots are epic.
Oh, I can't wait to see those boots. I gotta go shopping myself. I got some work to do. I got some boots. I don't have quite the full-on cowboy boots, but I might have to do it.
You should. Go to Boot Barn, John.
Boot Barn. All right, I'm going to Boot Barn.
Boots.
Yeah.
I want to get your take on this, though, because there's a new poll from Axios Generation Lab that was released on Tuesday, and the survey results were pretty interesting. So we're always thinking about, you talk to conservatives about dating, like, would you date a leftist? Would a leftist date a conservative? And this was interesting because it showed that 71% of liberals wouldn't go on a date with someone who holds a different political opinion to them, and that is compared to only 31% of conservatives that said that. And also, it went to say here, the results showed that 37% of college-level liberals might not consider someone's friendship if they held an opposing political view, compared to only 5% of conservatives. So it seems like conservatives are a little bit more open to the dating aspect, even just exploring that experience.
Seems like there's a little, like a difference in like the attitudes here, because we're okay with opening up and being with whatever. We're okay to reason. We can come to a agree to disagree. But it seems like they cannot at all.
I'm actually disappointed with this chart, but not for the way or the reason that you would think. I'm disappointed that the conservatives being unwilling to date a leftist percentage is not higher.
Yeah.
What I like is that conservatives are so open-minded to friendship with someone of other different political views. I think that's important, but I do think if you're dating with the intent to marry, which all of us should be, in my opinion, then I think that you should be having a hard line to draw in the sand if I am not going to date someone with completely opposite worldviews. So to me, it's disappointing that that number isn't higher for conservatives.
Yeah, because I think your standard should be that. Like, you should be equally yoked. For me, I think it's faith, and then also the conservative aspect. It blends in with faith as well. And if you're starting to compromise that early, your relationship's already on sand. It's not going to work out. You got to build it on something stronger than that. And I completely agree with that. I was shocked, and I was like that too. I was like, all right, well, that's what I kind of expected from liberals, but conservatives, like, come on, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, because I mean, you're gonna have to potentially have children with this person and agree on how to raise them and stuff, and you can't have different views. And then, well, I mean, some people do. I'm guessing, yeah, obviously.
As the left or as the liberal side of the political aisle has gotten more left and more progressive, I have seen over the years, just slowly, one by one, my friends that were liberals have unfollowed me. I have one left. One friend, like a lifelong friend that I've had since high school, that still follows me. Everyone else has dropped like flies, slowly but surely. And that's it. I haven't unfollowed any of them, by the way. The ones that have unfollowed me, I still follow them to show them that I don't care. I still love them as a person. We've grown up together. I know who you are. You know who I am. You know, what's the issue here? And so that is been really sad to see, because the left has just gotten so insane that they can't even see my normal posts about my everyday life.
And they're very condescending. I know I even got an interesting message with someone I went to college with, someone that I took journalism classes with, someone that reached out and said, like, well, I'm really sad about what you do now. And like, I can't believe that. And they have this almost like moral high ground that, like, I don't even really want to discuss this with you. I was like, really? Like, you're gonna send me this little message here. It's pretty accusatory and pretty inflammatory, pretty condescending, and then you say you don't want to
let you have your side of the story or just talk.
That's the way people feel, and if you're gonna start dating people like that too, like, that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's not a smart thing to do, but we're gonna start wrapping this up. So once again, we got Ericka Fest coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we had breaking news. Alex Clark has got some cowgirl boots.
I have cowgirl boots.
Let's go. So in that case, use promo code Alex just because she got cowgirl boots.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We got Adam Doliak, Brantley Gilbert, Ray Lynn,
Russell Dickerson.
Russell Dickerson, and then Adam Doliak once again. the man.
Yeah,
Lee
Lee
Greenwood's going to
Greenwood.
do God Bless the USA. We got Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, a lot of big-time speakers. But coming up next, we got a brand new episode of The Spillover from Alex Clark. Once again, you got a hostage negotiator.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to get crazy.
So fun.
But thanks again so much for tuning in. Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.
The Spillover is powered by Turning Point USA, and so is America Fest. If you haven't purchased your tickets to this year's biggest party in America, you better do so ASAP before it sells out. I am extra excited for this event because it's going to be here in Phoenix, Arizona, so you can ask me where the best places to go after the show. I will tell you. But mark your calendars for December 18th to the 21st. It's basically the best Christmas present ever, and the lineup is fire. We've got everyone from Donald Trump Jr. to Governor Sarah Palin to Kayleigh McEnany, and even musical guests like Lee Greenwood and Russell Dickerson, Brantley Gilbert, Ray Lynn. I mean, this is huge. You are not going to want to miss it. Go to tpusa.com/AmericaFest right now and get your tickets. I cannot wait to see you there. It's The Spillover. I'm Alex Clark. 2013 was not too long ago, and on January 29th of that year, there was a massive crime unfolding in Midland City, Alabama, on a school bus. Jimmy Lee Dykes, a 65-year-old Vietnam veteran, climbed onto a Dale County school bus just after 3:30 in the afternoon. The man told the bus driver, who was only 1 year older than him, that he wanted to take two boys. One was 6 and the other was 8. The bus driver refused and stood in the aisle of the bus blocking Jimmy's way. Suddenly, Jimmy fired his gun 5 times, shooting and killing the bus driver. He then grabbed 5-year-old Ethan Gilman, who had autism, and took him off the bus. The rest of the children were forced to climb over their beloved bus driver's body in the aisle to leave. Jimmy took Ethan into a 6-foot by 8-foot underground bunker he had built on his property. The bunker was filled with homemade bombs and had a PVC ventilation pipe. Once they were underground, Jimmy called 911 and said that if people wanted to talk to him, they could come up to the PVC pipe and talk to him through that. Quickly, FBI hostage negotiators arrived on the scene to communicate with Jimmy and Ethan through the pipe exactly as he instructed. The negotiators were able to send little Ethan his medication and a coloring book and crayons through the pipe in the beginning of what became a 7-day hostage situation with the old man and the boy. The multi-day standoff ended when the hostage rescue team saw into the bunker with a hidden camera and got a view of Jimmy holding a gun. The agents threw stun grenades into the bunker and then exchanged gunfire with Jimmy, killing him and thankfully saving Ethan Gilman. All of us experience stress in our jobs, but the stress of a hostage negotiator is almost unfathomable. It's hard for me to imagine the anxiety and pressure that a hostage negotiator would feel knowing that his or her words, if not delivered in precisely the right way, could end up with one or several people being killed. The largest hostage crisis in history to date was the 1979 Iran hostage crisis, which resulted in 66 American citizens being taken by Iranian militants at the American embassy in Tehran. 52 of those Americans ended up being held hostage for more than a year. Hostage situations fascinate me, so I knew I had to bring on a hostage negotiator, and I found the perfect person. Today's guest has been a part of the Tucson, Arizona Police Department since 1999. During that time, she's worn many hats, from being a bike officer to patrol officer to lead police officer and even detective. Currently, she's sergeant in the Community Outreach Resources and Engagement section and works works on the substance use resource team. She also assists as a supervisor with the hostage negotiations unit and, get this, has 10 years of negotiator experience. This is Sergeant Ericka Stropka's story on The Spillover. Sergeant Stropka, what made you want to be a hostage negotiator, first of all? Is that something that you always dreamed about, or did it just sort of happen in your law enforcement career?
Well, to become a hostage negotiator, you have to have worked at least 3 years as a patrol officer. So for me, I quickly realized that one of the things I loved to do when I was in the field was respond to really high, risk, lots of crisis calls where it required me to be patient enough to actually talk to this person and really delve into understanding what's causing this crisis. And I was fortunate enough in my first squad that I was assigned to, our lead police officer at the time, his name is Mike Kasha, he was already a member of the negotiation team. And so we would respond on calls, and, me being a rookie officer, he'd come out and check and make sure I'm doing my job right. And he was wonderful because he was the one that said to me, Ericka, you really would be good on the negotiation team because you seem to have a knack with just being able to be patient through listening to when people are in crisis. And you don't seem to get too, riled by it, or, it doesn't seem to take you away from being able to, preserve your officer safety and still do the job with a level of respect for the individual that you're talking to. And so that got me thinking. And I was like, hostage negotiation. I'd never considered that. But what's interesting is that I actually have my degree in communication studies. So, well, duh, that's perfect sense. Like, of course I should go into hostage negotiations. Why wouldn't I have considered that in the first place, right? So that really started me off this quest of trying to get in with the negotiation team. And back then, and I hate to date myself because it makes me feel really old, but we're going back now 15 years ago. Our negotiation team, that we have trainings every month. And this used to be a thing that was open to any member of the police department. Like, if you wanted to come to a negotiation training, you were allowed to come to our training because, we knew that you would walk away with valuable skills that could help you in the performance of your job, whether you're in patrol or your investigations. So I started attending those even prior to becoming a part of the team. And so that really just solidified, like, I need to do this. Plus the training we provide, it covers a really vast variety of different topics, to include psychology and, yes, of course, communication skills. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it. I mean, I had somebody just recognize, like, you'd be good at this. And then I connected the dots and I was like, yeah, this is kind of what I'm really into communication. So let's do it.
So you mentioned some of the aspects that go into hostage negotiating, like the psychology behind it and everything. So talk about the training that someone has to go through for hostage negotiation and what the basic rules of hostage negotiating are.
Sure. So, if you're going to be a member of a hostage negotiation team for a law enforcement agency, there's a couple different trainings out there, but what's recommended is you attend a 40-hour basic negotiation course. For us at TPD, Tucson Police Department, we actually have a great working relationship with the FBI. Now we're going on year 4 where they will actually come down to Tucson and we do a multi-agency 40-hour basic school. And that's the first step. So for us, we go through a selection process. So you have to put in a memo of interest. You've got to go through an oral board. You go through a practical where they test you just like with no skills or training to see where you kind of fall on that
What do they do in that?
So when I went through old time negotiator, had been on the team for many years, Fred Cushman, this guy, really great man. He just had been a cop for a gazillion years, chain smoker, he had a raspy voice, nothing ever riled him. It didn't matter what was going on. And he could talk to anybody. He connected with everyone. He was the role player. And the scenario was I walk into a room and on the table, he's got a pitcher and he's got an empty bottle of whiskey and a pack of cigarettes. And basically I have to figure out what's going on with this man? Why is he so upset? Why did I get called here as a negotiator? And so that was my practical. I had to like make a connection with him, build rapport. And that's something like I love to share with you and your listeners is that, you know, when you go through the negotiation school, the primary thing that we're learning about and the thing that every negotiator gets on day one is active listening skills. In order to be able to make a connection with somebody, you have to have solid active listening skills. And any negotiators that might be listening to this podcast are going to know when I say MORE PIES, which is the acronym for the 8 active listening skills, we really drill that in the school. And why we teach that is that active listening is the beginning step of the stairway to behavioral change. And you need to have good active listening in order to demonstrate empathy, which then in turn actually builds rapport, which is that relationship, that connection you get with somebody where they feel like they trust you. You know, like when you meet somebody for the first time, you're like, God, I just feel like a great rapport. Really, like there was something about this person. I just felt like connected to them. Well, as a negotiator, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have that kind of interaction with somebody where they actually trust us, because if they trust us, then we can actually have some influence and ultimately then that behavioral change. And so that's what we're trying to do in negotiations. And it takes good listening skills. I was one of those people. I used to think, oh, well, it's because I'm a good talker. No. You have to be a good listener and you have to have patience. Like that's a big part of being a good negotiator. So
the acronym that you brought up, MORE PIES.
I know. And I was like, God, why did I do that to myself? Because now I'm like stressed out. I'm like, I'm not going to remember. So M is for minimal encouragers. I see. Go on. You know, like if I non-verbally, you're head nodding, I'm head nodding. Then it's O is open-ended questions, because when we ask a person open-ended questions, it allows them to vent and go in any direction they want to go. The R is for reflecting or mirroring, and that's just basically repeating back the last few words of what somebody says, like, you know, so are you having a good day? Yeah, I'm having a good day. A good day? You know, so it's like getting the person to continue to tell you a little bit more about what you know, they just said. Then the E is going to be emotional labeling, and that's really training yourself to listen for the emotion underlying what somebody's saying. And I think you do it. I've listened to some of your other podcasts, and you really listen to what the person say, but you're listening for deeper meaning, right? You're trying to like identify the emotion underlying what the person's saying. Like right now, it's like I sound probably a little excited, you know, underneath what I'm actually saying. It's not just about the words, it's about what's underlying the words. And when you emotional labeling somebody's like conversation, you are now connecting with them on a deeper level, because they're like, oh, whoa, okay, so you weren't just hearing the words that were coming, you're actually understanding what I'm saying. And so then we go to P, which is paraphrasing, repeating back everything what somebody just said in your own words, and it helps you to clarify that you've got the story straight. That's how we as negotiators also, when we paraphrase, it allows us to make sure we got what's valuable to the person. So like, for instance, like if I paraphrase something back to somebody and I forgot something that was really important to them, if I've got a little bit of rapport going on there, they're going to correct me, or they're going to interject and say, yeah, but also this. Well, and this is really important to me as a negotiator, because that actually is something they want me to know about. Then we go into, where am I at here? I did paraphrasing. I'm at I messages. I messages are like, and if any of your listeners have ever like attended any counseling or anything, it's basically I'm telling you how I feel.
Yeah, I was going to say, everything that you're describing to me sounds like you would be an A+ relationship therapist.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of are. Well, but people are like in a serious, high-strung situation, right?
Right. Because most of the situations that negotiators are responding to are a crisis where this person's normal coping mechanisms, they're not working, you know, and it's due to some precipitating events, which typically have to do with loss, you know, loss of a relationship, maybe financial loss, maybe loss of self-esteem, or, you know, just feeling disrespected. Could be a job, could be their children. You know, that's really oftentimes what we see, is that we're responding to situations where a person suffered a lot of loss.
So you, after I'm assuming then it's E.
E is going to be effective pauses. Now, effective pauses are sort of like the silence that you give somebody. Effective meaning you're doing it on purpose for a reason. Maybe it's I'm going to change gears. Like I've let this person really talk for a long time, and now I need to tell them something really important. Like, okay, I've been, I understand, we've been talking for a while now, but we're not going to go away. Like, let's start talking about when you come out, what that looks like. So I'm changing gears. May take a good deep breath so the person knows, like, I have something important to say. And then what was the last one? S?
Yes.
S is going to be summary. So you're paraphrasing, but you're also putting emotional labeling into it. So you're summarizing what they just said to you. So you're using paraphrasing, but maybe you're saying, it sounds like you're really frustrated because, you lost your job and then you came home to find that your wife wants a divorce and she's threatening to keep the kids from you. And it sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed by all of this. And, that's why you're considering killing yourself. And so that's a really strong summary, but that's something you're going to do after you've started to really kind of get in the flow of talking to somebody. And the more somebody talks to you and the more you demonstrate that you're really listening, then, and they hear your sincerity and your voice, that's where you build that rapport. And it's the key to how you're able to move the negotiations to really helping this person to see that, like, they can come outside and they're going to be okay. Like, nobody's going to jump on them and stuff. So.
How often are hostage situations happening? I mean, is this a rare occurrence, or is it actually more often than people would think?
Right. So the term hostage situation doesn't happen all that often. Actually, more times than not, we're responding to a non-hostage situation where a person's being held against their will, but they're more of a victim. They're somebody who this suspect or the person that's in crisis is contemplating hurting this individual. It's usually somebody they're in a relationship with, somebody that's known to them, and that's usually what we see more times than not. The actual hostage taker, that doesn't happen very often, and when it does, the hostages are being used typically for some type of leverage, some escape or money or something. They in a true, like, mind of the hostage taker, they're not contemplating necessarily killing all the hostages, because they know that if they do that, then they won't be able to fulfill whatever their goal was, which in, like, let's say a bank robbery, the person wants to get out of there. They don't want to stay there. So they know if they kill one of the hostages, there's a good chance that they're going to get killed. So,
right.
That's the generalized, terminology that we see it on all different spectrums. No two instances are the same.
So you talked about in the beginning with learning how to become a negotiator. There was another officer that laid out the cigarettes and the picture and all that. And you basically went in blind and just had to figure out what his deal was.
Right.
So is that usually what happens? Like, you just go in blind, you have no idea what's going on? Or is there a sort of preparation that goes into learning about the offender? I don't know what the correct term is.
Yeah, so that's a really great question, because sometimes we do go in and we have a little bit of the backstory, because that's one of the things we're going to look at. Like, we're going to ask the question, like, who called 911? Was it the suspect? Was it the victim, or was it the neighbor? Who called 911? And that's where we start typically. We figure out what was that initial information, and then that gives us a little bit of an understanding of what the story is. But there are some times when we go to a call and we really don't know much of how we got there, or what the relationships are with the people involved.
Why would there be sometimes that you show up to the scene and don't know anything?
Well, I mean, let's say, for instance, you have a neighbor that calls it in, and they're like, they hear screaming and yelling coming from the neighbor's house, and they're like, hey, there's a domestic dispute going on next door. I hear a woman screaming for help. She's saying, leave me alone, drop the gun. We go to that. We don't know what we're going to. So we may run oftentimes, actually, I have to say, I know in my agency, our officers are awesome. Like, they're already running the address. They're running the phone number associated. They're trying to figure out who am I responding to, right? Because it's officer safety. We want to know what we're going to before we get there.
Do you look at their social media?
As negotiators, we do. Absolutely. Like, by the time we get called as negotiators, we're doing a full social media.
Have you ever had somebody in the middle of negotiations with you while they're in the house or wherever they are posting?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We just responded to something like that a couple weeks ago, actually. Yeah. Guy we couldn't get him. This was the call that I'm going to talk about real quick with you, was actually a an individual, a man who he suffered some untreated mental health issues, that he was self-medicating, using marijuana, drinking a lot, not sleeping a lot. And he owned firearms. And so he had gone outside in the middle of the night after drinking a bunch, started shooting out into the neighborhood. Neighbors called. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. We get there and negotiators start to try to make contact with him. And he starts sending us links to YouTube videos, and he sent us some different cartoons and some memes, and then we found him on Facebook, and we actually did most of the negotiating through Facebook Messenger. And the whole time we were talking to him, he's posting things on Facebook and
like acting like things are normal, or saying, "Hey guys, what up? I'm in the middle of a hostage situation."
No, and he wasn't holding anybody against their will. Actually, he more or less was suffering like a crisis, like a mental health crisis breakdown. But he was making statements like he wanted to kill himself and there was no reason to go on. And under that situation, we tried our best to really get him to come out, but he wasn't wanting to talk to us as much. So the Facebook Messenger is a tricky one because you don't get the tone of voice, right? You can't really have that true connection, but it's not uncommon. When we finally got that guy to come out, he actually told us, because this is something interesting. So on my team, we make it a point that after somebody comes out, we go up and we talk to the person and we thank them for coming out. We introduce ourselves. We ask them like, "Hey, what did I say? Is there anything I said that I shouldn't have said? Is there anything that I said that really, really resonated with you?" And we get feedback instantly.
You get a Yelp review.
Yeah, we do right then. Right then, we get these reviews.
And so what kind of things did they say?
Well, this guy, what's interesting is he wanted to be really mad at us, and he couldn't. He even said, he goes, "You guys are really nice. I wasn't expecting this." He goes, "I actually feel bad that I put you guys all through this."
Wow.
And and that's really, I'll be honest with you, Alex, that's a big part. Like, I've been doing the job for a long time. So, that feedback you get after the fact is really what helps you to understand the importance of being respectful, of really, really treating people like humans, even when people do some really, really horrible, horrible things.
So tell us about the absolute best case scenario for a hostage situation that you've encountered, and then the worst.
Okay. All right. So I'll start with the best one. And no, I'll start with the worst. Let's start with the worst and end with the best, because that's kind of better.
A happy ending.
I think. Yeah. So the worst case scenario was actually the first time I was ever placed as a primary negotiator. So I was a brand new negotiator, just came off the school. And, I was like so raring to go. And I have to tell you, like, I'm the kind of person where I always want to be the primary. I don't ever not want to be the primary.
And so what does that mean, being the primary?
So we have different assignments on the team. So we have a primary negotiator, a secondary negotiator. We have somebody who's recording what's happening during the negotiations. They're using like an actual digital recorder, but they're also taking notes of, what's going on. And we have probably about 10 other, there's a combination of about 10 other assignments on the negotiation team. For us, we run a pretty big team. We typically take about 12 negotiators for every time we get a call out. Tucson averages about 30, 35 call outs a year. That's not always somebody being held against their will. Sometimes it's just a barricaded individual who maybe had committed some type of felony crime, or maybe they want to kill themselves and they have access to firearms and we can't just walk away from that, right? So anyways, the worst one I ever had, I was raring to go. I wanted, I was excited to be the primary. And it was an individual who was suicidal. And he actually, he lived in an apartment complex, and the call came out from his sister-in-law, his ex-sister-in-law, who was inside the apartment with him. And so here's a good example of like, you ask like, well, is there a time you go to these calls and you don't know what's going on, So we go to this because she called to say, my ex-brother-in-law is in the bathroom. He's got a shotgun. He wants to kill himself. And
just before you go on, describe, what does the house look like? Like what kind of neighborhood is this?
Yeah, so it's actually a decent neighborhood, a decent apartment complex on the east side of Tucson. Actually, I think it's a little bit of an older population that lives in this apartment complex. The apartment's on the second floor. It's near the pool, sort of in the middle of the complex. This was, came out on this call. It was the middle of the night. When we get on scene, the first thing we do is we make contact with whoever the supervisor is, the negotiation supervisor, and they start giving us a real quick briefing because typically we're behind the curve. They need us to get in positions and start communicating with people, and we don't always get all the information right off the bat. We'll just get enough of like who's involved and why we got called there usually. And then as we're there, we give out briefings over the radio, and then you get more information, you fill in the gaps. So, basically get there, it's the middle of the night, and it's a full call out for SWAT and for hostage. So when it's a full call out, means everybody's expected to be there. And the reason why it became a full call out is because we're in an apartment complex where there's multiple, people that are in close proximity of this event. And this guy's armed with, we thought it was a shotgun, but it was a long firearm. We didn't know if it was a rifle, but pretty sure it was a shotgun. That's what the sister-in-law said. And so, I get there and they go, okay, Stropka, we're going to put you on primary. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. It just came off the school. I can do this. I believe in myself. And so I start trying to call this individual. And so we typically will, as soon as we get a phone number, we start calling. And he didn't pick up. His sister-in-law picked up. And I didn't realize it at the time, but she was actually in the apartment with him. And at this caused some confusion because we weren't sure, was she being held against her will, or was she in there because she wanted to be in there? Well, it turned out she was in there because she believed she could talk her brother-in-law to put down the rifle and to come outside.
How successful are regular civilians in those situations?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's case by case, to be honest with you, and it depends on what the relationship's like, right? So sometimes, you could have a situation where a person draws you in on purpose because they want to, maybe they want you to see them kill themselves or something. But in this case, that didn't seem to be what was going on. She was more or less checking on him because he left a voicemail that sounded concerning to her. And so she basically was went over to check on him, and then he locked himself into the bathroom, and, she knew he had a firearm, was pretty sure it was a shotgun or some type of a rifle. And so my first negotiation was me coaching her on what to say to him. So I was trying to teach her active listening over the phone of how to try to connect with him to help him to put the rifle down and to come outside, and that everything was going to be okay. So what makes this such a bad situation for me, and my worst one, was my first. And then from there, what SWAT team decided they wanted to do, because they want to know what kind of firearms people have, right? They have to be prepared for whatever it is the person's armed with. They decided they were going to drill a hole into the bathroom and put a fiber optic camera in there, so that way they could see, what kind of firearm this guy had, see what was going on. And so they asked me to move over up to a position in the front of the apartment, so away from what's our NOC, which NOC stands for Negotiation Operations Center, which in our case we have a CP, like a command post, where, we all kind of group there, and we have our own separate room where the primary, the secondary, and the recorders sit. And
so you're in the apartment?
Yeah, that's the CP, but we're at the apartment complex. So they asked me to move up to start to give announcements over the PA system to mask and cover up that sound of them drilling in through the bathroom, right? So anyway, I go up, I move up, and so I get on the PA, and I'm a brand new rookie negotiator, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what they told me in the school to do, which is like continue the negotiations with using active listening and using the man's name and just really trying to demonstrate like, hey, I really care about you. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Well, I do all this, and probably within 3-4 minutes of me being on the PA, he shoots and kills himself. And
what is that like as you're on the phone and you hear that gunshot go off?
Well, I wasn't on the phone. I was on the PA, but we were close enough to the actual apartment that we could hear it. And, and then hearing his sister just scream, upset, and her coming out, and then us talking, she was just a mess. I felt so bad. I still to this day, and this is like probably about 15 years ago. I mean, I really to this day still feel bad for her, because she wanted so bad just to help her brother-in-law or ex-brother-in-law. But one of the things we learned after that, with the debriefing of it, which was information I didn't know at the time, was that this guy had just gotten a job at the apartment complex as a maintenance man, as a maintenance worker there. So if you can imagine for a second, like, Okay, so I said earlier, sometimes people have loss of maybe self-esteem, or, maybe you feel like, you're not doing well enough. Saving face and really saving a person's like credibility and, their ego or whatnot. I just got on the PA system and I just now said, come on, Steve. I don't remember if that was his name. I'm just making that up. But come on, Steve. We all care about you. Please don't kill yourself. Just come out. We can talk to you. I just now shared all this information about this guy over the PA.
In front of all of the people that know him.
All the people that know him. So that had a forever profound effect. And it has a lot to do with the way I teach now. When I teach a class on how to use the PA and that's one of the first things we think about is like, and we talk about it, is like, think about who's hearing what you're saying. Another good example of this is, and this is actually a positive example of PA actually working to our benefit. Probably about 7 years after that, we responded. This was a very, very sad call where this female had actually broken off a relationship with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend became extremely obsessive over her, like stalking her, and to the point where she like had a friend that she basically asked her friend if she could stay at her friend's boyfriend's apartment, which was like a duplex, like a single, unit, that's separated, but single story, if she could stay there temporarily just so he couldn't find her, because she was so worried he was going to try to kill her, because the reason why she was really, really panicked about this individual is because he was using bath salts at the time. I don't know if you remember bath salts.
Oh my gosh, that was a massive thing.
Yeah. So he was like addicted to using bath salts. He had untreated mental health illness that caused him to be even more paranoid, more like delusional. And then he was obsessing on her. Well, anyways, she's staying with this friend's boyfriend, and it's like a Saturday night and they're all like hanging out together. And somehow he finds out where she's at, and he actually breaks into this house, and he has a rifle and he's got an axe. And they end up getting into the bathroom. They lock themselves in the bathroom. They're frantically calling 911. Officers are able to get there quick enough to break out the window, get everybody to come out the bathroom window. But then at that point, they basically just contained this house. Okay, the officers did. And again, it's like the middle of the night. We get the call out. It's like, okay, all the SWAT comes out, all the hostage guys come out. And I was one of the first people there. And at the time, we had an officer who had some build a rapport with this individual and was really talking to him. And so while they were talking to him, it's like, we just coach the officer. That's what we do. Like, if it seems like you have good rapport, I'm not going to interject myself because I'm a negotiator, because obviously I know, like, if you can influence this person, then that's all we want. And our ultimate goal is for nobody to have to use force. We don't want the person to kill themselves, and we don't want them to kill somebody else. We sure as heck don't want to kill the person that we're talking to, right? So at any rate, on this call, long standoff. Okay, this guy's up and down on these bath salts. He's marching around. We could see him in this little like house. It's got a big picture window in the front.
How many hours is he marching around?
Oh, it was probably, if I had to go back to my memory, because it started in the middle of the night. It was like 2:00 in the morning when we got the call, and when it was all said and done, it was like the sun was coming up. It was like 6:30 in the morning, 7:00 in the morning, because it was like winter time, and it was probably, it was a long time, and there was a lot of, it was one of those calls as a negotiator where you're having to try to help this person to have a semblance of reality, but they're so high on, this illegal substance that's really compromising their ability to have any rational thought. So at any rate, the PA for us, we were on that PA for hours. Myself, we would switch back and forth, me and another negotiator, Leslie Gallagher, who's actually a supervisor on the team too, is like myself. And we were just going back and forth, like just saying to this guy, no real threat of like, oh, we're going to like undermine his credibility with neighbors because he doesn't live there. So we were being very much open about his name and everything. And when it was all said and done, here's what happened with this guy. And just basically, we were talking to him over the robot. So we deployed a robot that went up to the front of the house, and we had a negotiator on the robot talking to him, and he just had an episode, and he just like, it kind of snapped. And so he leveled the rifle and he started shooting. It looked like he was going to shoot out the window. Well, we officers engaged him that way, and unfortunately he ended up, it was an officer involved shooting, and so this individual died. And it was, you know, it's really tough on those kind of calls because you know that he's not in his right mind, you know, but the PA really worked to our advantage, because when we were leaving the scene and we were, you know, basically walking back to do the debrief at the command post, I had a neighbor call out to me and say, excuse me. And I go over and I was like, yes, ma'am. And she's like, I just want to thank you so much because I heard what you were saying over the loudspeaker, you know, and she says, you guys really tried, you really cared about that man. And I'm so sorry that, you know, it ended this way. And I'm like, we are too, you know, but I mean, so can you help us too, right?
Wow.
But, yeah.
That's incredible. I was thinking that when you said, you know, we're saying this out loud, it's the middle of the night. I'm thinking if this is my apartment complex, I'm getting out of my front porch with the popcorn. And I mean, that's like, I don't know, I'm going to want a front row seat to what's going on. Yeah. So I wondered if there were people that would be standing around or listening, or if you tell people to go in.
We try, it depends. If you're within that threat of danger, we're going to either evacuate you or we're going to ask you to, you know, shelter in place and go to, you know, the back part of your house or whatnot. But typically we try not to let people just like stand out in the open, especially when there's firearms involved. You know, we don't want anybody to get hurt. But. So
when you do have a fatality like that, is that the type of stuff that gives you nightmares, or are you able to disassociate?
You know what? I have to say I hold on to stuff for a long time. I really do. But what I do with it, rather than letting it eat away at me, because I really do believe that, like, you know, my attitude's the only thing I can really truly control. And so it's my job to keep myself like good attitude. I take all the situations I've been through and I use them as a way to learn from it. So I'm always pushing to be my best, always pushing to figure out how could I have done that differently. And whatever like conclusion I come to, you can ask anybody on my team. I share it with everybody. I'm very brutally honest with myself, but also with my team. Like, my team knows when I make a mistake or I feel like I could have done something better, I share that. And so I think that really has a lot to do with maintaining your wellness, you know, and not really letting it eat at you. But for me, you know, you asked about my best situation, and I have to say probably one of my best ones was, and I'm sorry, there's so many stories. You probably don't have a lot of time for all these stories.
No, give us all the good stories.
Well, the one that really I've been talking about for a long time, and if anybody knows me, will say, oh yeah, I've heard her do an incident debrief on this one, because it was a textbook, like, not, you know, what the FBI would consider a non-hostage or a pseudo-hostage event, where a subject was holding a woman against her will, somebody he knew, he had a relationship with her, friendship with her, and he was, again, very obsessive over this girl, and to the point where he had professed his love for her. And when she was like, I don't like you like that, he tried to kill himself by slitting his own throat in front of her.
Okay, and so was he successful, or is he he's alive and bleeding?
No, he's alive and bleeding. He goes to the hospital, and then 2 weeks later, after he gets out of the hospital, he calls her and tells her, my mom is really mad. He's younger. He's a younger guy. And he's like, my mom's really mad because we're going to have all these bills. And, you know, this is your fault. You need to help us. And she was like a mentor kind of person to this guy. And so she's like, fine. Okay. What is it you need help with? And he's like, my mom needs us to fill out this paperwork for the hospital. Can you please come over to the house and explain it to her and help fill it out? And without giving away I'm kind of giving away the ending of the story, but like a year after this, I had talked to her. I debriefed her a year after the incident because I wanted to know, like, how are you doing since all of this? And she told me, she's like, I can't believe I let myself go over to that house. But for some reason, I felt so bad for what he was going through. And knowing that he had tried to kill himself, I'm like, if I can help you fill out some medical insurance paperwork, I'm going to do it. I'm going to like come over and help you. Well, what she didn't know is that was sort of like to lure her over there. And so as soon as she gets in the house, he gets really mad at his mom. His mom gets scared, runs out of the house, and then he basically holds her against her will. She tries to run out. He grabs her, throws her down on the ground, strangles her, tells her, "You're not ever leaving here. They're going to have to take us out in body bags." And so that was the call to 911 came from the mom saying, I don't know what's going on with my son, but he's trying to kill his girlfriend, he called. That's what the mom said. So that was that was a primary I was on. And that was about 5 years after that other call I told you about. So it was like, okay, I'm a person where it's like, I know I can do this. I just need another chance to try to keep doing this. Right. So I was one of the first people on scene. And so I had the initial conversation with him, and he was screaming, "You're going to have to kill us. I'm not letting her go."
So he is angry, seeing red. And so how do you talk someone down? What are you saying to him?
Right. So I'm like, I said, I understand you're upset. You're angry. You want us to all leave. Because he kept saying, I want you guys to all leave. If you don't leave, I'm going to kill her. And I said, I understand you want us to all leave, but I want to know more. What happened? How did we get here? So it's like, it's really a matter of you as a negotiator, just maintaining your own sense of calmness and recognizing that this person's just in a lot of crisis. And in that particular call, I didn't know the relationships of the people involved. I didn't know very much about this gentleman. I didn't know that he had diagnosed mental health issues where they'd put him on a cocktail of different medications that weren't really working. And so anyways, long story short on this one. So I talked to him for about 3 hours. And during the course of that was probably the hardest negotiation I've ever been on, because when he had her and was holding her against her will, he would allow her to get on the phone with me. And so I would talk to her, but you could tell she was just petrified, just scared, shaky voice, trembly voice. And, I wouldn't ask too much about him. Or too much about her. I really kept it all about, are you okay? Is he okay? Do you think he can come out? Do you think you can come out? Because I knew if I asked too much or if I asked too directed questions that put her in a compromising situation, he could take it out on her. He can hurt her. He can't hurt me, right? So to be really careful with that. So that was really a stressful situation for me at the time.
Yeah. How do you? I cannot imagine that type. Everybody has stress in their job, and I talked about this earlier too in the beginning of the podcast. Everybody has stress, but the stress of knowing I have multiple lives in my hands. How do you cope with that?
Right. Well, it's going back to training, right? So if do you take your training seriously and you just fall back on your training? I know I need to just connect with this man. I need him to know that I'm on his side. And as a negotiator, that's what you're doing. You're advocating for this person. So everything you're doing, you're taking it to the commanders. You're like, hey, so for this guy, we moved the SWAT team moved up their ballistic armored truck up in front of the residence, and he freaked out. He was like, "Oh, that truck! I want that truck out of here!" And he's like, basically was threatening, like, "I'm going to kill her." And then at one point, he breaks out the front window and he puts a rifle out, and you could see the barrel of the rifle, but you couldn't see him and you couldn't see the backdrop. So on that particular call, they were given the authorization to kill this guy if they had to, especially since he was pointing at us, and especially since he was telling me, I'm going to kill the next SWAT officer I see, or he didn't call him officer, but the SWAT person I see.
How do you see? Who is it? The snipers or whatever? Do they just have a scope? They can see deep into these apartments and watch their every move, or how does that work?
Well, it depends. So in this particular case, this guy had this kind of an opaque, it was a curtain that was basically he was behind this curtain. You could kind of see through it. So I guess it wasn't opaque. It was more like a sheer curtain, but you couldn't make out exactly what was behind it. And since we knew he was holding somebody against their will, if you're going to take a shot, you need to know what your target is, right?
Right. So if you can't see, what do you do?
Then you can't shoot this guy, right? So basically he was describing, the officers that were pulling up, and he was saying he was going to kill them if they didn't move. So I'm like, give me just a couple of minutes. Let me talk to my commander. Let me talk to my boss. Let me tell him what you want us to do. And literally it was that act of saying to the commander, like, hey, he wants us to move the truck. Can you move the truck at all? And they said, okay, we can move it back 5 feet. That's all we can do. And I go back and I say, hey, okay, they will move it back 5 feet, but that's as far as they can move it back because they want to protect the neighbors across the street. But we know you're serious, because that was really important to him. So, a good negotiator is going to try to go after the fact and review all of the stuff that you've done. And in this case, when he was interviewed by the detectives, he even said, he's like, because they moved the truck, it made me feel like they were listening to me.
Wow.
So that was like, cool. 5 feet may not have seemed like a lot, but it was enough to demonstrate like we are listening to you and we are going to try to work with you, right? This isn't just me telling you what to do, because in a lot of these situations, people want to feel like they're in control. So you've got to allow, because they really are. Like this gentleman, when he was in that house and he had that girl, he was in control. He was in control. He could decide if he was going to kill her, kill himself, or kill one of us. And really, what do I lose out of it? Nothing. As far as like, it doesn't hurt my ego if I let this guy know, like, hey, I'm really listening to you. I'm going to really try to help you here. Well, he ended up, long story short, I'm sorry, like maybe we need to do this in multiple episodes. I don't know. But long story short, she saved her own life. She ended up convincing, he wanted to get an order of protection against the husband. She was married. And this was how like kind of delusional he was about this relationship.
He felt like she was with him.
Yeah. And so he was going to try to get an order of protection. And so she's like, I need to get my driver's license so they can see, my driver's license. And she came up with that idea, and I heard her say it in the background. So I played off of it, and I was just like, she's right. We really do need to get our driver's license. And one of the rules you asked me about negotiation, one of the rules that we don't do is we never try to lie to people. And that was one of those times where I was like, ooh, gosh.
Why never try to lie? Like, why is it even important to not lie to people like this?
Good question. It's because we want to build trust. So, like, for instance, I've been on a negotiation where a guy said to me his only demand was he wanted to talk to his grandfather. If I was said, no problem, we'll get your granddad on and I try to lie to him and have somebody who wasn't, or in this case, he was trying to get us to get his grandfather on the line, and he kept giving us information. Well, come to find out his grandfather was dead.
Okay, so see now, then what do you do?
Yeah, so if I would have gone along with like, oh, no problem, I got a negotiator on the line with your granddad right now, we're trying to get him to talk to you, he would know I was lying, and it would undermine and it would destroy any of that rapport that I have built. So we never try to lie. Plus, we also know that oftentimes people we talk to are going to have law enforcement contact again. So I'm actually setting it up for the next law enforcement officer to have a good interaction with this person, because this interaction they're having with me, the negotiator, I'm not lying to you. I'm treating you with respect. I'm listening to you for a deeper meaning. I'm trying to really connect with you. I'm validating you, and I'm really trying to minimize any of your fears so I can help you to see that like it's going to be okay. So the next time it's not, he or she will hopefully not have an issue. But going back to that other call, that call was a really tough one, but she ended up coming outside, and we ended up, I got him to come out. But what I didn't know at the time, and it really haunted me for a while, was that when she was on the phone with me, he was actually stabbing the couch next to her head.
As a threat?
Yes. Yeah. And so like, yeah, it was tough. I mean, that poor woman, I felt bad for her. But talk about success stories for like individuals who've been through traumatic experiences. I mean, she had a few months of not like being depressed and feeling like, oh my God, how did this happen? And then she said to me, she's like, I finally had this this feeling of like, oh my God, I had all those people that day fighting for my life. So she went back to school. She picked up, started majoring in psychology because she really wanted to have a deeper understanding for why somebody would do something like that.
That's so cool.
I know. Yeah. So
have you ever had a hostage situation that involved a child?
Yes, I have been on a couple different instances where there have been children involved. Luckily, all those incidents, they've ended with the children being released and allowed to come outside.
Well, when you talked about establishing trust, I mean, what if these demands are like crazy, like I want $1 million and they're asking for ransom or things like that?
Right. We're going to buy for time. We're going to really, get to the details of how much money you want, exactly how much money you want. And then it's basically a matter of just trying to help the person see. To be honest with you, sometimes there are situations, and I haven't been on any of these negotiations, but there are situations where you may, the commanders, the incident command may say, okay, well, we'll give them some money, but then if they come outside, then there's usually a plan in place to take that person into custody.
Right. I was going to say, like, these people that want this money and then you give them the money. I mean, are they really that dumb to think, like, oh, now I'm going to get a life to, like, spend this money?
Well, I mean, if they're in crisis, then anything's possible, But, most of what I've, shared with you today are some of the local, negotiations. I'm sure, when you talk to some of the FBI negotiators who are dealing with kidnapping cases or, ransom type situations, like that's a real deal. Like that there's something to be said about that. But
is there a pattern to the types of people that find themselves in these scenarios? Is there a certain type of person that tends to get in these predicaments?
We really look at what's the crisis. What were the precipitating events that led up to this person being in this situation? I will say that most of the negotiations I've responded to the majority have been males. It's usually men. I cannot recall a time I've ever been on a negotiation with a woman. But that's, I would say, just from my own experience, that's typically what we see. But it really has to do with what was the situation leading up to this. That's where we start to kind of unravel that so we can gain some understanding, because we really want to know what's the motivation behind this. If you understand. So, so what's really kind of interesting. So when we get new negotiators on, the first thing that they want to do is they want to do the who, what, when, and where, type thing. We're all about the why. Like, I want to know why. I want to know what the relationships are with this person. I want to know, have they ever done this before? If so, how did they get through the crisis? I want to talk to that person. Who talked to this person? Who talked to you and helped you not kill yourself?
Are you able to ask those questions in the moment, or you have to wait till the case is over?
We have intel. So what we do is we have people who are assigned to intel, and they're digging up all of that nitty gritty stuff. As the negotiator, the primary, I'm not going to probably know that right off the bat. It's going to be the people outside of the knock that are going to be getting all that information. They're going to be like, hey, you know what? His dad was the one last time that was able to talk him out of, killing himself. Now, if I'm a female negotiator, which I've been on that call before, that's another call that haunts me a little bit because, well, not just a little bit. It actually is something that I think about oftentimes, and that call was with a person who he was wanted by the U.S. Marshals for a robbery that happened in Las Vegas, and they tracked him here to Tucson. And when the Marshals went to contact him, and it was in a condo. I don't know. We see a pattern here. It's like all these apartments. But anyways, when they contacted him, he pulled out a gun and said, get away. I'm going to kill myself. And so they backed out and they called negotiators. And I negotiated with that guy for like 3.5 hours. And after the fact, we found out that he had a history of being suicidal. And it was his dad that always talked him out of it. Well, he actually ended up killing himself. Now, I was on the phone with him when he did so. He actually thanked me, and he was, that's a hard thing to know. Like, you're the last person that somebody spoke to on this earth. I think that's the thing that probably as a negotiator, you kind of have to like make peace with, that you can't save everyone, and it's not my responsibility if somebody ends up taking their own life. But that guy like forever haunted me, and we do to this day. When we're doing an assessment of like who do we put as primary, we ask some of those questions. If we have answers to it, like, hey, this guy really does jive better with men than he does women, then we might put a man on instead of a woman, because I have a nurturing style in the way that I negotiate. It doesn't work for everybody. Like, not everybody wants their mom trying to negotiate with them. Sometimes that's a real big turnoff,
Do you ever just close your eyes and sometimes you hear those shots that you've heard on the phone?
For me, I've not had to be on the phone when somebody's shot and killed themselves, but I've been on plenty of calls where there's been shooting, and yeah, if I close my eyes, I can hear it. I have to say, I think it's what makes officers like a special kind of person, because, I don't think I'm alone on this one. God granted us this courage to be able to run towards the gunshots and not away from them for a reason. And I feel very blessed that, I do have a real good relationship with God, and all the instances that I've been on that haven't ended the way that I hoped they would have, I really give it back to God. And I just ask him to just bless that family and bless that soul and to, heal our team and heal all the people that, have been affected by it. And I'll be honest, like that's my coping mechanism. That's what helps get me through all those situations that don't end the way I wish they would have or hope they would have.
I love that. I couldn't imagine doing your job and not having faith like that, because I just feel like as mortal human beings, we wouldn't be able to handle all of that on our own.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of crime shows. You know this if you've been listening to Spillover.
I do.
So I loved Mindhunter. I don't know if you ever watched that one.
Oh, yeah. We did.
Well, the show opens with a hostage negotiation scene. And so I don't know if you've seen that particular show or not, but I was wondering, what do you feel like Hollywood gets right when they're portraying hostage negotiations, and what do they get wrong?
Oh, gosh, that's such a good question. And can I just share with you, I'm the worst when it comes to recalling movies. Most cops, they know lines from movies. I am the worst. I watched all of Mindhunters and I'm like, you just said that. And I'm like, I can't remember that. I don't know, maybe the sensationalism of it all. Like, the thing about negotiations is it really is an art. It's not a science. There's a lot to what we do that you really can't explain. And it's dependent on the person you're talking to, and I guess if anything, it's like, you can't wrap this stuff up in 15, 20 minutes. Most negotiations last about 4 hours and they go up and down and up and down. So I guess if anything, it's like, I guess that wouldn't make for good TV, because there's some downtime in negotiations.
Just a good podcast, though.
Yeah, a really good podcast.
Okay, so you also do a lot of work fighting the war on drugs.
Yeah.
What sort of work do you do with the community outreach resources and engagement section and the substance use resource team?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that, because I'm very passionate about the work we're doing in Tucson Police. We were recognized by Arizona HIDA for our prevention efforts in substance misuse. And really what's really cool about what we're doing is that officers forever have responded to overdoses, in the community. When somebody overdoses, they obviously call 911 and you will get a paramedic or, fire department or police officers that show up. And sometimes officers are the first ones there. And since 2017, TPD's been, we're all outfitted with Narcan, which is the opioid overdose reversal drug. And what's grown in our department is back in 2018, Assistant Chief Hall, he implemented a new policy that allows officers the ability to, rather than take somebody to jail for a usable amount of like methamphetamine, cocaine, opioids, which is what we're seeing mostly now, right? Or the
that's what I was curious about.
Oh, it's so bad. The blue 30s are M30s is, oftentimes what they're called, or blues. Officers can take a person to treatment instead of booking them into jail. So that started in 2018. And so my squad, what we do is we go out into the community, we do outreach, we respond to non-fatal opioid overdose cases. So somebody, if there's a case report about it and we have the information, we will go and make contact with that person. And what makes us really unique is that we actually give naloxone, which is the actual drug, the opioid reversal drug, to the person, to their family, roommates, friends, whoever. We give a tutorial. We're like, here's what you do in the event. We explain the Good Samaritan law in Arizona. So if somebody suffers an overdose and you call 911, they're not going to get arrested for the paraphernalia.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So how many states have that, or is it only an Arizona thing?
I don't know. I should have been better prepared.
Oh, that's okay. I just thought of that question as you're saying
No, I don't know all the states that have the Good Samaritan law, but Arizona is one of them. So, and the reason for that is we want people to call for help, right? We don't want them to say, oh, no, I'm not going to call, and then this person dies.
Right.
So we get the word out about the Good Samaritan law, and we really are going and we're connecting. We have peer support specialists that co-respond. So I have people with lived experience that work in my squad. They actually not 24/7. We don't work 24/7 in my squad, but 4 days a week, 10 hours a shift. I have peers that actually co-respond with my officers. And, when we're talking to people in the community that have a substance use disorder, we're actually, if they don't want to, like, if they're like, oh, you're a cop, you don't know. Well, talk to Brendan, talk to Paul, talk to Eddie. They have lived experience. They can be like, yeah, bro, I was in, prison for this, like, and now look at me, I can tell you there's hope. And so we use motivational interviewing. We're trainers on trauma-informed care, and we're really trying to meet the underlying causes of why people use, and not just look at this as like a moral issue or a moral failing or, oh, you're a bad guy because you use. We know this is a disease, and the more we educate ourselves and our officers, we're helping to destigmatize why people misuse substance. And it's really been it's been a game changer for us in Tucson.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about drug addicts?
Well, it's just that they're bad people. I mean, when you talk to somebody who has developed a substance use disorder or has the disease or an addiction, I always did. I'll be honest. Since I started law enforcement, I've always asked people, like, tell me about when you were a kid. What did you see yourself growing up to be? When you ask people that question, they're just like me. They're like you, like, oh, I wanted to be. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody in the back of my cruiser who's like, oh yeah, I wanted to be a cop, or I wanted to be a firefighter. What happened? Oh, well, my this and that and the other, and then I started using drugs or whatever. Oftentimes that's what happens is people get, this drug changes the chemistry of their brains.
And so it is opioids in at least in this part of like the Southwest, because that's where we are. Is that the biggest drug problem?
Yeah, right now we're seeing a ton of fentanyl, which is a synthetic opioid. It's coming up through Mexico. DEA, actually, they did a study on all the pills that they've been seizing in Arizona, and they found 42% of the pills that they're seizing have a lethal amount of fentanyl in them.
Wow.
And that is just scary. That is so scary. And it explains why we have so many people who are dying from this horrible, dangerous drug. And you can't, so these are fake pills. They look like real pills. They're not real, but they look real, and they're being mass produced. There's no science behind how much fentanyl they're putting in each of the pills. I mean, if you looked at, two oxycodones together, one's laced with fentanyl, the other one's an actual prescription pill, you're not going to be able to know the difference. And if you can't tell the difference, your kids can't tell the difference, your friends can't tell the difference. So, a big thing for us is really getting the word out. Like it's really important to not just accept any pills from anybody who isn't your doctor or a pharmacy. And, it's really scary, but that's really what we're seeing is the fentanyl.
Let's talk about being a police officer in the current culture and climate. How have things changed for police officers on a day-to-day basis recently?
I think that it's really hard with social media. Some of the messaging, it seems like, oh, people are really, they hate us. But I'll be honest, like in Tucson, I have so many people that come up to me and thank me for what I do. I've had my lunch bought for me so many more times now than ever.
Oh, that's good.
It's really sweet. I people are wonderful. I got to be honest. Like I try my best not to really listen too much to, the negativity about it, because it's hurt us. Like, you've got to look at our staffing numbers are down. It makes me wonder, just Ericka, like I ask myself, like, how many officers are we not getting to sign up because maybe they feel like this job is like, people hate you. But I'll be honest, like I have so many people that come up and thank me for what I do. It really, I guess it encourages me, that, we're still valued, and people know that like you have to have somebody you can call for help, right? When there's an emergency.
So then this notion of defunding the police has to be asinine to you.
I don't know. I think I don't know how you could defund us. Like you need us, like we're a necessary part of every community is to have some public safety. So, but I'll be honest, like I'm probably not the best person to ask.
That's
like,
okay.
I really try not to. I'm really bad with social media in the sense of like I don't really participate too much because I really like to keep myself focused on what I can control, which is just doing the best I can and really remembering that people, they need us to help them when they're in crisis. And I'm really grateful. I have a really good team that I'm surrounded by that really make me feel like my job is important. So
I love that. I have a really random weird question because you are in Tucson.
Okay.
And it's okay if you don't know anything about it. But my fans and I, the cute conservatives, I call them, we are obsessed with the story of the Lisa Frank factory. Just the whole thing, like it being abandoned and how it was like a nightmare to work there. Have you ever heard anything about that situation at all? And it's okay if no, but I just have to ask.
Okay, so I don't know anything about that, but I can say I did work a couple of shifts off duty at her house.
No way.
Yeah.
Tell us, please, what you can. You don't understand. We did a whole docu-series on this. We just think the story is fascinating because it sounds like nut jobbery in that establishment.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know anything. All I do know is I love the Lisa Frank folders and all the little stuff when I was younger. It was really so cute. And I got to be honest, okay, so I have a good friend who, that was her every week. She had an off-duty job. We can pick up jobs off duty where we, people hire us to basically be security people. And whenever she can fill her shift, she'd call me and say, hey, you want to work the Lisa Frank house? I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, I want to work there.
Why do you think she needed police officers?
I'm guessing she had threats. Or who knows? Just maybe she just felt more safe. She didn't leave. She did not live in a gated community. So, maybe she felt like she was, susceptible to being, victimized. But it was a midnight shift. When I got there, I think only one time did I ever see her, and she just waved to me. But I would have to every hour walk her property, and I'd look in her she had a guest house with
Was it colorful?
No, but there was she had a workout equipment, and then she had this one room with very organized. I just remember. She's oh, look at all this stuff. She's got everything is organized,
This is the conservatee, as I like to say. Anyway, I just had to ask that while you're here.
I'm sorry. You should have told me ahead of time. I could have done some research or something.
No, this is good. This is the juicy scoop. This is the first-hand scoop. I love it. Officer Stropka, thank you so much for coming on the Spillover, and thank you for everything that you do protecting our community. And of course, I'm a fellow Arizonan now, so thank you for everything you're doing for Arizona.
Thank you, Alex. This has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate what you're doing to try to highlight our work.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Ericka's just a straight up cool chick. And what are the odds that she did security for Lisa Frank? That is so funny. If you watch my daily show, Politics on Instagram, we did this mini 15-minute documentary about the Rainbow Gulag, aka the Lisa Frank factory, a few months ago, and how the Lisa Frank company was actually a nightmare to work for. Fun fact. So I just had to ask Ericka about that, since the old abandoned Lisa Frank factory is in Tucson, Arizona, where she lives. So that's the backstory on that question. But you can find more from Ericka's department by subscribing to their YouTube channel, Tucson PD SURT. Subscribe to The Spillover on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave your weekly 5-star review. Keep doing those every single week when you listen. And of course, if this is your first time listening, please leave one then. And make sure you're telling your friends about this show. Just like my show, Politics, it is so important to me to do things a little bit differently than everyone else in the conservative movement and cover different topics. I don't like talking about the same thing that everyone else is talking about. So that's what I love about this show, is I get to really storytell, and not even me, but I'm, allowing other people to storytell. And that's what we need more of, is conversations, hearing about different lives, different experiences, different things that people have gone through. Nobody's talking anymore. So that's what I really wanted. And since the show is free, subscribing and leaving reviews is the #1 way that you can help support us and show that you are enjoying the show and that you want to hear more. I'll be back with another episode of The Spillover next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
Big dog status, I'm a big dog vet. I pull up on the block in a big Corvette. Yeah. Ride around the city with a stick all black. Try with a stroke, but we ain't with all that. Yeah.
Bing bong, it's Jon Root coming up on TPUSA Live. Tune into another episode of Politics where host Alex Clark will give her take on Hillary reading her victory speech, Bill Gates' jab blog, she shares her Freak of the Week, and so much more pop culture without the propaganda. Next on Politics.
I'm calling to the local birds. I'm trying to see if they want to play. But I found a new activity. I've been eating like the salt crunchies. Like it's so salty, like it reminds me of fries. We are all just French fries in a little box. Look at that family over there. I'm tempted to terrorize them, but I'm also tired of walking, so. Yeah, Jussie.
This is the most chaotic video I've ever seen in my life. I don't know where to start. Is he on the moon? It's giving last brain cell vibes. The hamster bottle, bejeweled. It's like a fever dream I never want to leave. And we're all just French fries in a little box, bestie.
Are you totally deranged?
This is my new favorite TikToker. I want him and Alex from HRH Collection in a room together with a mic. Anyways, today on the show, David Dobrik exposed how celebrities sell their souls to the devil in Hollywood, Hillary Clinton poops her pants and cries on camera, and Black Lives Matter has a seance for Jussie Smollett. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Why am I just now seeing this David Dobrik interview where he talks about Hollywood celebrities selling their souls to the devil, aka the Illuminati, aka the same thing, to become famous? All of you are grounded. It's a month old. My one deficit is that I don't follow YouTubers, okay? Anyways, the clip is so juicy that we don't care that I'm a few weeks late. Let's ride, boys.
She really wanted to be famous, I guess. That's what she wanted to be. And she met somebody who could promise her that. And she met somebody. Have you ever heard this?
No.
She met somebody.
This is crazy.
And he was like, I know how to make you famous. And she's like, how? And he's like, we can turn you into anything. Like,
Scientology.
We can turn you, honestly.
It may have been something like that.
We can turn you into a singer, an actor, whatever you want.
MTV's Made.
And yeah, really.
I want to be made.
And one day he visited her apartment and he was like in a suit and tie. And I came in and I saw him in the suit. And then she's like, please leave. And she closed the door on me. So I left. And she came up to my apartment fucking sobbing. And she was like, this guy, please, you cannot repeat this. And for 3 years, I held the story to myself because I thought this guy was going to kill me. But they were like, if you ever repeat this, they'll kill me and they'll kill you and they'll kill anybody that you love. And she was sobbing to me. And she's like, this guy, he came to me. And he's like, this guy came to me and he's like, I can turn you into anything you want to be, but you have to sacrifice somebody. And I just spoke to my mother and my mom. My mom really supports me and she's like willing to be sacrificed so I can become like famous. A singer or whatever, famous, whatever. And this was completely serious and it was really terrifying.
Speaking of selling your soul, Hillary Clinton, everybody! Hillary cried reading her If I Would Have Been President victory speech during a masterclass. You're not president, Hillary, and nobody cares. And yes, she's teaching a masterclass. No, it's not on how not to break the glass ceiling. Hillary, why are we still crying over this? In pandemic years, this was like 100 years ago. Move on from it like Bill moved on from you in the 90s.
It's been 84 years.
She should have just farted into the microphone. I would have respected that more. Bill Gates posted a new blog, and there's some things I think you should know about.
Bill, can you do the dab real quick? Damn, Bill! Back at it again with the dab.
He said, I underestimated how tough it would be to convince people to take the juice and continue to use masks.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
He also said, I think the acute phase of the pandemic will come to a close sometime in 2022. The heck is this? Don't you think it's weird that Bill Gates acts like he's CEO of the virus? Don't tell me this situation isn't staged when you hear billionaire celebs complaining that they can't control the masses.
Is it true that you can leap over a chair from a standing position?
It depends on the size of the chair. I'll cheat a little bit.
Yes!
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
I love how we weren't supposed to listen to anything Joe Rogan had to say because, you know, he's not a doctor, but Bill Gates, the software slinger, absolutely no questions asked. Sheep gonna sheep, I guess. The freak of the week is when Black Lives Matter makes a statement that they stand with Jussie Smollett no matter what.
I said certified freak. Freak! 7 days a week.
Oh no, baby Black Lives Matter, what is you doing? They released a statement on Jussie Smollett and it's more stupid than you can even imagine.
Oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth.
They said, we can never believe police, especially the Chicago Police Department, over Jussie Smollett, a black man who has been courageously present, visible, and vocal in the struggle for black freedom. Feminists believe all women, socialists believe they're equal, and BLM believes all liars. Doesn't surprise me that a group that pockets donations for mansions will be on board with any institutional takedown, like accusing Chicago police officers in a place that most certainly needs more. Fun fact, the current head of Chicago PD is a man named David Brown, a black man.
I'm so sick of these people. You know, oh!
Pookie, take us out, baby girl.
I am with Pookie. Yes, this is real human hair. Don't be jealous. She was $65. She is one of a kind. She's handmade by this old Italian woman in Italy. I'm eating goldfish, and I saw an eyeball pop out over there. What do you think, Pookie?
Oh, that's what all they up. That's what all they.
I think these might have black mold on them.
What is happening? I feel loopy.
Like this episode for Pookie, comment for the eyeball in the wall, share this episode with 10 people in your DMs right now, or Pookie will visit you tonight when you're least expecting it.
That's what all they up. That's what all they.
Rumor has it that Pookie was Chelsea Clinton's childhood doll, but then Chelsea cut all her hair off, and now Pookie's lesbian lover is Hillary. Don't repeat that. And save this episode for Black Mold Goldfish! If your weekend isn't as chaotic as this episode, you ain't doing it right. We're back Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. No Charlie Kirk, I'm not on meth. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Support Politics, the first ever conservative pop culture daily show, by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, and of course, hitting the thumbs up. Also, our main home is on Instagram. Seriously, just trust me, that's where the real magic happens. Follow us there at Politics.